Yeah, I know the music's still on. We're jamming. We jamming, man. All right. I this OCD thing, I don't want to stop the music in the middle of the tune, you know what I mean? We gotta let it play. How's everybody doing tonight? Got a lot of stuff to talk about. Just a bunch of stuff, dude. And yes, my watch stopped working. I got to get a battery. So people are like, his watch is not working. People will notice that, and I'll get messages about it. Crazy stuff, dude. Crazy stuff. We're gonna talk about some stuff. We got more than just Dogman, Bigfoot, Goatman, ghosts. There's a whole bunch of stuff. Okay, and I'm gonna have two different authors come on tonight, and we're gonna talk. Okay. One of the things we're going to talk about, sound good? One of the things we're going to talk about, if we have time, we're going to go into these Dogman attacks. If not, we'll get to it next week. But I cleared my schedule out tonight. I got 2 episodes I have to record. Yes, I'm a hardworking man. Okay. I was up early today dealing with my business, arguing with people on the phone. Trying not to have an anxiety attack, people not doing stuff and doing their reports and doing silly things. And we have a very bad account right now. It's a ghetto account. Y'all pray please for the safety of me and my guards. I'm not joking. That we don't get hurt. Can't believe we took it. But it is what it is. So, I'm dealing with all these things and I'm still managing to get stuff to put together for the show and get guests to come on and talk about all these subjects because I care about these things. I want to talk about these things. And so we got a lot to talk about. We're going to get started. PRTpodcast.com. That's the website. Josh Turner at PRTpodcast.com. That's my name. Don't wear it out. You remember that? Back in the 80s? That's my name. Don't wear it out. I know you are, but what am I? That's how we used to talk back in the 80s, folks. I was a kid, but I remember it. And I remember, I became a teenager in the 80s, so I remember, all the goofy stuff from the 1980s. And my sisters both had the big hair, the weird. Remember the rake hair? I don't know if people from the 80s remember that. Oh, God, we were silly back then, dude. Silly. We were silly. Okay, so we hit 17.6 thousand subscribers, so we're moving. We're like pushing. We're going to hit 18. Folks, tell everybody about the show. You can. Tamara, thank you for that donation. Guys, donations are they're not expected, but they are appreciated. And right now, they'd be greatly appreciated. Trust me. I got news to announce. We are going to try and put together a Dogman conference. But it might not just be a Dogman conference. We're thinking Paranormal Roundtable Cryptid conference. And I just got off the phone with a couple of good friends of mine. And we're talking about seriously doing this. And we're thinking we do it in the LBL. And so obviously I haven't even asked him, but I know my friend Barton would go. I shouldn't be volunteering him, but I'm sure he will. And Elijah Henderson, hopefully we can get him to go. And they can come out and speak because they're from that area. And I'm pretty sure I can get them to jump on board. And maybe at least 3 or 4 or 5 other, people that have told me in passing, hey, if you do this, let's get, And so I also have some other news too. But let me read the Patreon members real quick. Maynard W., $20. Thank you for that. And Adam Jenkins. These are the $20 PRT VIP. Okay. And then those are everybody who does $10 and up, you get your name mentioned. Jim Kovacs, Cassidy Lee, Kenny Irish, great author, by the way. Josh and Kelly Herrera, Vulcan Death Grip, David Allman, Christie, Shonda Hardinger, Brady Matsunaga, Cyrili, David Vigil, Fat Squatch, Sonia Girding, Dorothy Metcalf, Mimi Piccolelli, Polly G, Melissa Koyman, Pauline Rome, Mary Plyler, Stephen Hall, Miguel Guerra, Eric Garcia, Tim Lewis, Super Hornet 1, Debbie Wolf, Extreme Reality Check, James Estrada, Tim Bernard, Ricardo Herrera, Titan, Dead Man Walking, Russell Nash, Guy, Melissa Panay, Derek Tribble, Dick Richards, Joyce Brunette, Barbara Blindy, Martin Hertel, Terry Fuselier, Chris Clough, Curtis Turner, Philip Moore, Alexander Murphy, and Matthew Durgo. And I believe there was another one who had just gotten, I don't think he got put on here. But I don't want to leave anybody out. Let me make sure. And Scorpion just said, Deborah Norsworthy, happy 67th birthday to you, young lady. Congratulations. And we got I don't want to forget this person because I forgot him one day. Barry Winfield. Make sure Barry Winfield's on there if he's a Patreon member. He wanted to make sure that everybody knew he was a supporter, and I appreciate his fervor. So in order to get this conference off the ground, we're gonna have to take money from the show, obviously, and the money that we make from donations is how we keep the show going. And then from the Patreon. So that's pretty much, we limit the commercials, folks. If you notice, when you watch the show, I think on the podcast now, we do like a promo thing for the company that pushes all our stuff out. But besides that, we don't get a lot of money other than, from merchandise sales and then donations and on this show right here, and then the Patreon. So we keep the commercials to a minimum. We keep it low, and also it'll help us to get the money together to put the conference together. So if you guys are interested in there being a conference in the LBL or at the LBL or in the area of the LBL, let me know, because we're looking into venues in that area and putting together the first, hopefully of yearly paranormal roundtable conference. And it's going to be a Cryptid Con type thing. I don't know. Me and Ken Gerhard were talking earlier, and we talked at length about doing this conference. And we thought Dogman. And then I talked to Lyle, and he was like, let's expand it into Cryptid so you get more, and you can have different people talk. Because obviously, you could get a Bigfoot, person or per persons, and then Dogman people. Yeah, somebody, okay, so what we were thinking is toward the end of July. If we start now planning for it, it's toward the end of April, that would give us 3 months to promo it and get it out, and it'll be the first one. And if we end up breaking even, I'll be happy. Okay. Was on the phone was on a conference call today with a possible TV deal to go on there and talk, which they're going to get back with me. I asked for something, not money, just because I don't want to fly alone, because I have anxiety on a plane by myself. So I said, hey, if you can, flip the ticket for Nelly, I'll do it. And I know it sounds silly, because most people would just be like, yeah, do it, because it's good promo for the show and everything, and it gets good exposure. But I can't, I don't have time to drive out there, and I'm not going to fly by myself. So, and if they can't do it, well, I understand ticket prices are high. Lisa Marie, thank you for that donation. I appreciate it. Everybody, like I said, from here until we get this thing going, we're going to be putting money into this idea of trying to get this conference going. So, another thing too, folks, people have been asking me, just so you guys know, the live stream and the podcast are the same thing, but they are also separate. They're part of the Paranormal Roundtable brand, but the podcast is a Friday show. It's an hour-long standalone, and it's dropped on 12 or I think 13 different platforms, something like that. And this is just the YouTube exclusive. You only get this through YouTube, and that's it. So yeah, and so that's the difference. People are asking me about it. What's the difference between the podcast and the YouTube show? Well, the YouTube show is this, but we do drop the podcast on this channel so it goes onto all those other platforms, including YouTube. So you get a lot of content. This coming week show, this coming up Friday show, we are going to record as soon as I'm done talking tonight. Mushu's coming to the studio, and yes, Mushu will be my co-host. And we're going to talk about, we haven't decided yet. We're going to do one about not deer and then a paranormal potluck, and we haven't decided which one we're going to do. So tonight, you guys, you get the luxury of voting. So you guys give me what you want. Tell me, do you want not deer or do you want a potluck? Because potluck can be anything. It could be black dogs, Goatman, ghosts, aliens. Who knows what you'll get. I got a ton of stories that we can put together and put them on there. Or we could just do the not deer stories. But yeah, you guys let me know what you want to do. And Starscream, you said you don't go to Kentucky anymore. You better go. You better come out there and support us. One of my oldest friends. You better be out there. So yeah, that's the thing. I see Justin Decker. Justin is in attendance. Justin had some pretty interesting things to talk about. And like I said, Justin, stick around. If we can get to it, we will. I got a couple different people that I got coming on the show tonight. And we're going to talk. The first guest will come on in about 25 to 30 minutes. Or no, let's see. Yeah, 30 minutes now. My eyes are deceiving me. I'm going to put these freaking glasses on, dude. I hate this. I'm telling you, I'm going to start wearing my falling down glasses. Fistful of groovy. Show the love. Good luck with getting that conference together, brother. God bless. Voting for not deer. So there you go. Not deer. Potluck. Shawnman Hernandez Ranch is not this coming Friday. The Friday after for 2 Fridays. In fact, my buddy just messaged me over the week on Saturday from the Hernandez Ranch and asked me when the show was coming out. And I said, that's not for another couple of weeks. And he's like, oh, okay. Because he wanted to check it out. So you got an X there still, Starscream? I think you have a lot of X's, dude. So I'm supposed to be heading out to LA, possibly, if it goes correctly. Then I'll be leaving on the 4th of May. Pray that I have a safe flight, folks, and I don't wig out and have anxiety. Because that's, I'm not going to wig out on the plane like, and turn into a werewolf. I'm just saying, I might feel kind of weird or whatever. And you people, the paratroopers, y'all are my strength. You help me. Thank you, Lou. Lou Tejano said, don't apologize for asking for your wife to come. It's a reasonable accommodation, even if you don't have flying anxiety. And that same show, Ken just did his spot for it, and Lyle did his spot for it. And so, it would make sense to go do it, but even though it's a good exposure for the show, like I said, I have issues about being on the flying tube going, whatever. I've flown many times. It's not the problem. It's just in the last few years, my anxiety's gotten worse, and I can't stop thinking about stuff. I got too much going on all the freaking time. There's always like a million things like ping-ponging around in my head. And it's just, that's a big problem. I have figured out though how I'm going to do the book, and kind of have an idea of how I'm gonna put it together. Was gonna have Nick Redfern help me with it, but Nick's working a job now, part-time, and I missed that window because I was so busy. I was so slammed. It was so hectic. And then when I did have the time, I got sick with the Omicron. And so, yeah, the name of the show, well, I don't want to say anything until we're sure it's going to happen. Once it happens, then I'll tell you. It's a very popular show. But I don't want to say anything until we're sure it's going to happen. so yeah, I kind of missed my window with them, but now I think I know what I want to do and how I want to do it. So that's going to be something else that's coming along. But just in time for that, the place where I'm at with my studio, we have issues because there's a leak, and everybody knows. And we've had issues with furniture and equipment being destroyed. And so we're at an impasse. And I don't know if I'm going to have to switch studios, or if me and my partners are going to buy this place and do something else. I don't know what we're going to do. Because if we buy it, obviously we can just do what we want. We can get it, and we can don't have to worry about somebody else fixing it. Because I don't feel obligated to fix something that's not mine, and I don't feel obligated to pay for something that's broken. So that just in time, and I was just going to come up here and have my computer up here and was ready to start rocking and rolling on the book thing, and then everything just kind of, it's always something, man. And I want to say something else too. I feel like really invigorated, I guess you should say. I buried the hatchet with somebody that I had some issues with, and I felt like the way I felt, and they felt the way they felt, and I just told that person, you know what, we don't have to be friends, we don't have to be enemies, obviously, and I'm not going to take that stuff down because that's going to stay up there, and everybody can draw their own conclusion. So, and he is, somebody that was on my show, and we had some issues, and I think we've turned the corner. We've buried the hatchet, and hopefully that's good. I had a chance to speak to Kumbo Baker and Bettina Moss on Saturday night after her show. Bettina just messaged me, and it was late, and Bettina didn't stay up late, so I was surprised to get a message from her. She says, "Hey, I'm on the line with Kumbo Baker. Would you like to speak with him?" Well, I've always wanted to talk to him, and I haven't, to pick his brain, and we could go back and forth. And so I did, and I am on the phone with him for 2 hours. Very interesting individual. So that was on my to-do list to talk to him, and I for all intents and purposes, kind of interviewed him and just let him talk. And so we're going to do a show. He's going to come on the show. He's got a lot of pertinent information. And so I think that would be another person that would be interesting to come and speak, possibly. But yeah, we're definitely going to do a show together. And I'm going to do a show with this individual that's going to come on tonight. So that's another thing, and I haven't forgotten. I'm still going to do a show with Albert Rosales and Kenny Irish, and these guys they've all written books, and I'm just backed up. I am very behind. I'm very, and we're trying to pump out the shows. The show with Kevin Panay is going to come out with the Hawaiian mythologies and all the weird stuff. It's going to be good. There's a lot of weird stuff we talked about. We got into some history and all kinds of stuff. So Kevin was a great interviewee, former military, and just, Hawaiian native, and had a lot of stories, and had a weird encounter in the water. So people, it's not just on the land that weird stuff happens. Cryptids are in the water too. If you want to call it cryptids, you want to call it supernatural, whatever, it was something that was weird. So anyway, we're going to talk about that. That's coming up after the Hernandez Ranch. So the basic schedule for Friday will be, we got Not Deer, Paranormal Potluck / whichever one of those. And then for 2 weeks, we have the Hernandez Ranch. And then we're going to have whichever one we didn't get, the Not Deer or the Potluck, will come on that next Friday. And then for 2 Fridays after that, we'll do the Hawaiian thing. And then hopefully I'll have Kumbo or Albert or Kenny, one of them will be on to talk. And then we'll do it all over again. We'll just keep going and going and going. But I got a lot of things to do. So what we're going to do right now, I'm going to try to see what the votes are here. It says I vote Paranormal Potluck, and another person said Paranormal Potluck. If anybody doesn't know what a not deer is, I'll tell you what it is, and I'll give you an example. I said this on my show. I think one of the stories, if you go back on the last live stream, or maybe it was the live stream before, and this person had sent me a story about when they were young and they were with their uncles, and just quickly overview or whatever, and they shot a buck. When they went up to this thing, it sprang back to life. Now it's not like, you can shoot a buck if you've never shot a deer before, okay, and and I've only done it and I eat every bit of it, even the hooves and the antlers. I eat it all. I even eat the fur. Okay, I don't waste anything. I'm very environmental and I'm very eco-friendly like that. Okay, so anyway, so you go up to it. The first time I ever did it, I was with a relative, and they said, "Hey, you got to be, be careful. This thing can pop up and it can gore you. These things are not, friendly, and they're a wounded animal." So what ended up happening to these people was that this thing, after they thought for sure it was dead and they gave it time to bleed out, it popped up, but it started undulating and acting weird, moving up and down, and it turned. They saw what looked like an arm or something underneath where the front limb should have been, and then a leg, a human-looking leg, where the bottom limb, like on the bottom part of it, was like it was turning into a human or something. Well, they got so freaked out that they just ran. They just left. They just left it there, and this was like in 1986 or something like that when this person was a kid. And they told me the story, and they just took off, and they were like, they'd never seen anything like that, and it freaked them out. That's a not deer. Skinwalker, I don't know. I had another guy who was a constable who works here now, but he used to be a constable in Arizona, and he had a suspect that he was chasing. Guy turned the corner, and he sees a deer jumping off over by a fence. I mean, Skinwalker, not deer, I don't know. Those are just a couple of examples. And then I got another story out of Vermont, or was it, I think it was Vermont or Delaware, one of those. I got to look. Hey, Anthony, I need my notes. I don't even have them. They're in the book. So anyway, I have my notes in front of me. I started without them. But this thing had fangs, and it ran up next to their vehicle, and it was running ungodly speed. The people were going 45 miles an hour, and this deer was keeping up with them, and it had teeth like a dog. And I was like, well, obviously, this is some sort of mistake. And I told him, I said, you were mistaken. It wasn't a deer. And he says, I would swear on any book in the entire universe that it was a deer. It was not a dog. It was not canine, but it had canine teeth. That's a not deer. And I got more. There was a gentleman from Corpus Christi, Mark De Leon, who was on a show, and he was talking about these creatures, and he had referenced my show on there, and so I need to get in touch with him. But he's got a crazy story about not deer. So those are not deer, and like those are just little small, we got enough to do a show, and that's why I was like, you know what, it's going to be that, or it's going to be a paranormal potluck, which can include just about anything. So you guys decide what you want to do. We'll see how many. By the end of the show, I see Scorpion, you're in here, you're moderating. Where is James? I don't see James on here. I don't see D either. So let me see if I can find somebody. Ryan's not on here either, so I don't know what's going on. Let's see if I can get my people to come and moderate real quick, folks. Huh. Well, we'll see what happens. Yeah, Wood says, I've seen inbred deer that are physically deformed. That's not exactly what I'm talking about. Not something that has teeth. Very strange phenomena. Where's Ryan? I have no idea where Ryan's at. He's not on here, I can tell you that. But Justin says, when I was a kid, deer were part of every potluck. Well, you lived in the freaking rainforest, dude, so you probably had monkeys in that pot too, whatever y'all could find. Trying to get my people in here. So what we're going to talk about tonight is we got some Goatman, Dogman stuff going on. Obviously, you know, that's kind of our main thing. We'll talk about all kinds of different things, but Dogman is considered probably to be the hot topic for our show, you know, in particular. But you're going to get so much of that, you know, it just. Corley Canner asks a good question. He says, can't you do a potluck with a couple not deer stories mixed in? Yeah, but then I destroy 2 episodes. Turns into 1. Because I have enough to do 1 episode with the not deer until I get more. And folks, you know how it works. Every time I drop an episode, then I get a bunch of, I'll do one about the not deer, and then I'll get 3 or 4 stories about the not deer because I've already dropped it. And making a second episode of whatever subject I talk about is much easier than getting the first one out for that reason. Thank you for that. All absent moderators will be flogged and tossed into the gorge of the eternal peril. Yes, that's right. So, putting together a show, you have to have enough stories to do the show. That's the most important thing. But if you have a certain number of stories, if you don't have a certain number of stories about one particular subject, then they get kind of chopped up and put into the paranormal potluck. That's what that is. But we always try to throw in some pretty popular stuff like Bigfoot sightings and Dogman into those paranormal potlucks. But yeah, that's what we're. And you guys let me know, you know, on here, on this chat, if you guys would be interested in going to a conference. If you guys are, if it's something you guys would do, you know, as long as I can get some people to go. I've got a lot of people that'll message me and tell me you should do it. You should do a conference. You should put together a Dogman conference. And I think that'd be great. But I don't know about Dogman. Maybe more of a cryptid conference. But I don't know. I mean, we'll see. And you guys at home listening, you tell me what you think. If you think you'd be interested in going to a conference in Kentucky. I was thinking somewhere more central like Missouri, but, you know, going to the LBL, which is a very popular place for all kinds of high strangeness and weirdness, you know, a lot of Bigfoot and Dogman activity both. So you would be there at the place at Ground Zero where a lot of sightings and things have taken place. So who wouldn't want to go and do that? You know what I mean? It just sounds like something that you'd want to do. I just, you know, when I was talking to Ken earlier, he made a good point. He's like, you know, if you go to the Mothman conference, it's there, Point Pleasant, you know, where the sightings took place, you know, like it's right there. So that's what his thinking on it was, doing it in Kentucky. And I've only driven through Kentucky, I think, well, twice, but I never really stopped. And, you know, well, I stopped, but I didn't like do anything. You know, we just drove through there. But I was thinking, that's a good idea. We'd go do it in the LBL, and then, you know, we'd have Barton there and the cryptid studies, you know, Elijah. And, of course, Ken would go. You know, and you'd have, you know, the usual suspects and people that, you know, and then it would just be from there who we would invite. Of course, Linda would be the obvious choice, but she can't do it. She can't do it. So she can't, you know, go to any more conferences or anything. I do know that there is a Beasts of Bray Road conference that's being put on by someone who I think is counterfeit. come out and say it. I think it's silly. And I think anybody that goes to it is you know, you're being led around by the nose. I mean, this person took Linda's work. It's plain and simple. And I don't care what anybody says, that's the truth. So you can go to that conference. Mine's going to be a lot different. I'm going to have a t-shirt cannon, and I'm just going to go around blasting it everywhere, shooting t-shirts from the ceiling. And if you win a t-shirt, then you get the opportunity to fight a Dogman. We're going to have in a cage that I'm going to poke at it all day. And then we're going to have a Bigfoot there in the other corner, and we're just going to like tease it with beef jerky. And then at the end of this conference, we're going to unleash them, and they're just going to tear each other apart. That's what you're going to get with my conference, folks. And if you buy that, well, I got a bridge I'll sell you. With Goatman under it. Yeah, that's a ticket. All right, so let me call my first guest, folks. Let me get him on the air here. Wow, Facebook knows what kind of watches I like too. That's great. I want to say something else, and I mentioned this before, but I really need to say this. I am not adverse to talking to people on the phone, but if I don't know you, calling me, which continues. You know, I would appreciate it if I didn't, you know, because and I'm not trying to be rude or anything or act like I'm too good to talk to people, because that's not the case at all. I love talking to my fans. I love interacting with you guys. Don't get me wrong, but I'm not going to answer random phone calls from listeners just because I don't, you know, it's not a good idea. Okay. So if you want to talk about any stories or anything like that, you know, you need to message me first, and we can talk through Messenger, and then you can maybe call me up, because I'm adverse to just answering the phone for people. I can't really do that, you know, and I don't want to be rude, like I said, or act like a prima donna, because I'm not that way at all. I love talking to my fans and to people, but I kind of need to get a heads up, like, hey, you know, we're going to talk. I got a story to tell you, and we set up a time or something, which I do all the time. You know, I talk to people all the time. But you know, I really need to like get a heads up. I can't just have somebody calling me. You know, somebody did it the other day. It was like 1 a.m. That wasn't, you know, and I understand the time zone might have been different. You have different time zones or whatever, but just calling me in general, just out of the blue, is something that I would appreciate you not doing. Just send me a message, and I'll get back with you as quickly, in a timely fashion, as quick as I can. David Buck, dude, I was only calling to extend your car warranty. I get enough of those, Dave. I don't need more calls about my extended warranty. Those people, are they the hardest working people in the world, or what? Like, they are just, and they got robots. They got like the Terminator working for them and stuff too. Like, I'll call back. You know, it's like, dude, how many times are you going to call? You know? I'm here to talk about your car's extended warranty. Is this the Terminator? I'll call back. All right, so let's get this first caller on the line here. It works better if I use the headphones. I hate it. This is a new pair. See if they're a little... Well, these are less obtrusive than the other ones, so let's get the call in here. There we go.
Hey there.
Hey, Lyle, how you doing?
I'm doing good.
Doing good. So, the reason for the call, I think you already know, is because you have a new something. You want to talk about that?
Yes, that is true. I thought you were calling the hotline to report a creature sighting, but
I was calling about your car's extended warranty.
right. You got me. Yes, I have just released a podcast that I have been working on for some time. It is called Monstro Bizarro, and within the podcast, I am able to discuss some of the cases that I've researched over the years, or ones that I, have enjoyed and want to look more into. And as, someone who has primarily worked in the written word as far as my things and written various books, this gives me another way to sort of present the cases and, provide an additional, way for people to enjoy this stuff. And part of the reason is because I've narrated quite a few documentaries with the Small Town Monsters film company out of Ohio. So in many cases, my voice has been heard in those documentaries. And so I thought, well, it's a natural transition to do a podcast. And there's so many podcasts out there, obviously, that, I try to think of an angle that was a little bit different, not just, not the interview format, but just a way for me to sort of present a audio version of the small town cases that I've researched in the past. So anyway, it dropped on the 13th of this month and will be a monthly podcast currently, dropping on the 13th of each month, in which I will offer a new episode.
And I heard the first episode, and I thought it was terrific. I actually, my wife had heard it first, and I came home, and from doing whatever, and she's like, "Check this out," and I was really tired. And I was kind of cranky, and I thought, I'm not in the mood to listen to it. When I listened to it, I actually enjoyed it. I was like, this is good. Because being tired and not wanting to listen to it, not wanting to listen to anything, and then listening to it, and I got into it, and I enjoyed it, and I enjoyed the subject. The first episode, you want to tell the folks what it was about?
Yes, so I picked for the first episode the Lake Worth Monster, which is a sort of classic cryptid tale from here in Texas. And that got a lot of headlines back in 1969, in which quite a few people in the area of Lake Worth, which is very close to Fort Worth in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, reported sightings of a very bizarre creature that they described as being large and covered in white hair. And some of them said they thought it might have horns. Some of them even said they thought it had scales. But primarily people described it something of like a white Bigfoot. But the way it was written up, it kind of straddled the line between what we would consider sightings of a Goatman and sightings of a white Bigfoot, if you will. And the articles that appeared in the Fort Worth Star-Telegram newspaper were written by Jim Mars. Mm-hmm. If anybody is familiar with Jim, he went on to write several best-selling books on the subject of conspiracies and UFOs, and was kind of active in the paranormal community. So very cool that he investigated those and wrote them up for the paper. So it's something that's kind of close by, because I grew up in Fort Worth, so it was kind of a local tale. And I've since, I've talked to people that were literally there, and during the 60s when people were out there at the lake sighting the creature, and I've gotten to know the family of a woman who wrote a book on it. So it was really the natural choice for a case to document, to start out right out of the gate.
And your episodes are about, 40 minutes long?
Yeah, it's about 35 minutes, and I'm going to have a question, like a part at the end where I just answer reader questions, so that'll add to it. But of course, being the first one, I had no questions yet, so that section is just an intro. But yeah, I want to keep it short, something that doesn't take a big commitment. There's, and it's kind of got an ambiance of, I'm a big fan of like the vintage kind of stuff, the show In Search Of from the 70s, and of course like Twilight Zone and things. So I kind of present, Monstro Bizarro as a world where strange things happen and, real people see unexplained creatures and other bizarre entities. And so it's pretty fun to do that. It has some music and special effects, sort of a little bit like an audio movie, if you will, a 30-minute audio movie.
Yeah. And it was interesting. I had heard the story before, but it had been a while, so it was kind of like a refresher course for me to listen to it. And I enjoyed it. And I thought it was very professionally done, and especially for your first episode. And what are the different platforms that we can find it on?
Let's see. It's on several: Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher. It's on YouTube. You can stream it from my site at lyleblackburn.com as well. But let's see, in the future it should be on iHeartRadio as well. So it's kind of getting out there in the distribution, which can take a few days or a week or whatever. But those are the main platforms.
Yeah, and it's really good. I recommend everybody go and check it out. Another thing too, let me explain something. Lyle, not only are we friends and he's a Texan, and and I'm not just blowing smoke and saying, oh yeah, this is a great guy, blah blah blah. No, Lyle is a very busy guy. You're like me. You're always doing something, and he has a band, and your band is Ghoul Town, and I really like it. My favorite song is Drink with the Living Dead, and then Elvira's number 2. But those are personal preferences, and your band is successful, and you have a hot sauce. Somebody was saying that in the group. Now, I've tried the red. I haven't tried the green. I don't know. What's the difference between the two?
Well, the green is a little bit hotter. I'm going up the heat scale here. It's a jalapeno-based verde green sauce with a little bit more kick, and it pairs well with a little different variety of foods, or you could mix them both and put them on everything, in my opinion. But I put out the original one, which is kind of a flavorful sauce that kind of goes on everything. There's not a lot of heat to it. It's just got enough spice to make it enjoyable. So, but I had recipes for others, and so the green sauce is the second, and then I will be doing a third, much hotter sauce in the future when I have time. As you well know, it's so much going on.
Time is at a premium for us.
Right. So, and the hot sauce, really originally was just like, I got this idea, oh yeah, it'd be cool to put on my table when I do book signings and appearances and stuff. And yeah, just kind of fun. And then the reaction to it was just over the top. I couldn't believe how many people were interested. And then when they tried the sauce, loved it. And then, so I've got it in about at least a dozen retail stores now that carry the sauce. And so, there's orders and all kinds of stuff. So it became its own monster, so to speak.
Is it in any grocery stores yet, or is it just still you got to order it?
No, I haven't got that far. That can be attempted, but of course it takes a lot of time and effort to get something on that scale. And so thus far, short of ordering it from my site, you can get it like Museum of the Weird in Austin and, some other just Monster Mart in Arkansas and just random places. So it's in some, I guess, one-off retail locations.
You sent me like 4 bottles and they were autographed, and I had to use one to try it. And so I felt bad because I used a bottle of it that was autographed, and I was like, well, so I still have 3 that I could, and my wife was like, don't open those. Those are autographed. Lyle autographed those. And I was like, we can get more, but, you won't be, So I told her, okay, so we just got them sitting up there on the shelf along with my other stuff, and I was like, I guess I can't use that. So I'm not allowed to eat those. So I have to order some that are not autographed.
Oh, so, okay, I see. Yeah, once they're autographed, they become sacred and unopenable.
You can't open them. Right. That's it. You're done. And so Lyle, the Lake Worth monster. I want to talk about that for a second. When you were talking about this creature, the sightings that took place, and we're not going to get into a whole thing about this creature, but it happened back in what, the 60s?
Right. Yeah, July of 1969 is when it started. Mm-hmm. And there were, first it was a couple. Lake Worth was kind of a place, a Lover's Lane type place where people would go and park. It was just rural. It was dirt roads. Even though Fort Worth and all this stuff is now totally urban, back then there was just some, very wooded areas, and people were out there parking. And this couple said that this thing jumped from the tree onto their car and it tried to grab this guy's wife, and they managed to start up the car, and the thing fell off, and they raced into a cafe and called the police, and that sort of set off this sort of crazy thing, because in the next day it was in newspapers, and then there was like 30 or 40 people converging out in this area called Greer Island there, and there was literally at least 30 people that observed this thing up on. There was literally, the next day, there was literally like 30 witnesses who saw this thing up on a high ridge. And, you don't often have a case where you've got 30 plus people seeing something. So I interviewed various people, and there was reported sightings, and that kind of went on for several months. A guy eventually even took a photo of something, he said, the creature. I mean, it's sort of, vague and blurry as these things go, but there was a lot to it, and that was all pretty much right there in the summer of '69 on into 1970.
Yeah. The creature is described as being goat-like, and now you said earlier that it could have been a Bigfoot, and now do the sightings continue to this day in that area?
Not so much. The concentration of sightings were kind of within that first year, and just sort of died out. And most people, like the original newspaper article said, fishy Goatman attacks couple, and that's where it kind of got the Goatman vibe. But if you really look at what the people described, it was very much, they said it looked like an ape with white hair. So it really was mostly a Bigfoot case. But since it was reported as a Goatman, and it was sort of this Lover's Lane hangout where oftentimes there's tales of goatmen, it always carried that sort of Lake Worth Goatman, so it was sort of a unique cryptid where it just sort of was iconic. It stood out. It really, was it a Bigfoot? Was it a Goatman? What was it? But the sightings pretty much ceased, and there's really been none, especially these days, because there's Home Depots and stuff a stone's throw from there. The areas, there's a Fort Worth Nature Preserve, which that location is part of now, and that does offer some wooded areas, but it's just really not conducive for any elusive creature to live. So the sightings naturally, are no longer reported.
Well, one of the things that I talked about last week on my show, and this is interesting to me, was that this was a computer company. I can't say the name of it. I can maybe tell you in private, but I can't say it out in here. But the guards there told me, it's heavily wooded, and there's a few campuses like that around Austin. Every single computer company in the world has a station here in Austin. So one of them in particular, it's heavily wooded, and they get they had a spattering of reports, about 2 years ago, and then it happened again. It started about 2 years ago, and then it happened again last year. And we went over there and we did like a little investigating, and we went on to the place because the guards, we knew them and they let us on. And they have some acreage there, but there's like buildings around there, and there's like all these like apartment complexes and stuff, and there's a convenience store right kind of diagonal. And you're shocked when you realize that several people saw these creatures, and there's habitation of humans like all over the place, and it's crazy. So I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if people still see that, these creatures, but they do see them in areas that you would think there's no way. Now, of course, obviously the majority of them are going to be out in the middle of nowhere, away from mankind, but they do still appear in places that you wouldn't expect. You would not think, like I got one behind a movie theater. Of course, there's a heavily wooded area right there behind that movie theater off of 620. And somebody said that they saw one behind there, like a creature, a dogman. Well, they couldn't tell for sure, but they think it was a dogman. It had a snout. But, you get all these weird reports. And the Goatman phenomena is something that I did a deep dive on my show with Ryan Tremblay. And we did one called Goatman Origins. And we talked about a lot of different sightings. And after that show, I got a few more. One in particular, Lyle, I think you ought to get down here at some point and go check it out. It's called Purgatory Road of Devil's Backbone, and near the cemetery, people claim to see a Goatman creature. Also, I got a black dog sighting in that area too, a couple of them, and so I don't know. I know that area, one side, people talk about Bigfoot, and then when you go to the west side, you get more Dogman encounters. But that area of Purgatory Road, people claim to see this black Goatman looking figure, and one person even said that it was right there by their vehicle, and when they drove by it, there were like 4 people in an SUV, and they looked and they saw it carrying a deer head. Which I don't know, I mean, that's just weird. That's creepy to even think about. But they said it was about 7 foot tall, and it was like it had the head of a goat, and it was on bipedal. And when I was listening to your show on the podcast, and the Lake Worth story has always fascinated me. And if anybody wants to take a deep dive into that, go and listen to the show. But it's an interesting case, because some people claim that it had like scales, but I was thinking like it could look scaly because like it had mud on it, and the mud, when it starts to dry, it scales up. That could have been, or maybe it was a Bigfoot, and people just added the horns, for effect or something, dramatic effect. Oh, it had horns, like with the Wendigo legend. Most of the Wendigo stories, the Native American stories, did not involve it having antlers. That was a later, like, an add-on. Somebody added that to the story. But if you had to put money on it, it was you, and you studied this case. Do you think it was a Sasquatch, or do you think it was some kind of a Goatman type creature? I mean, like, what was Lyle Blackburn's personal opinion on that?
Well, I would certainly put it in Sasquatch. It was only the very first couple that said they thought it had horns. No other witnesses ever said it had horns or anything like that. Some of them literally said it looked like an ape. And I've talked to a couple of people who were actually there in 1969. One of them was up on that ridge when all the other witnesses saw it, and he said it looked upright, human-like. He saw no horns. He didn't see it good enough to, say for sure. But I mean, there was WBAP newscasts that interviewed some of the witnesses, and if you listen to them straight up, it sounds like they're talking about a Bigfoot. So it was one of those things where the initial report and what Jim Mars used for a headline gave it that Goatman vibe, but none of the other witnesses ever did. And the other reason I think it could be a Bigfoot, or probably a Bigfoot, is because I've uncovered quite a few other sightings in that general area in and around that time period, in which people reported sightings of ape-like creatures that had white hair. And so that sort of suggests that, like any of these other Bigfoot sort of cases where, obviously if they moved around, or whatever, but, I always saw it as a Bigfoot case, but one that also had a little more personality, just because it kind of had the Goatman vibe to it.
Yeah, Titan, right when you asked that question, Lyle was just talking about white Bigfoot. And he just put the thumbs up. Okay, so Dan Nadrello is a guy who's got a group that's dedicated toward white Bigfoot. And that is a whole another subject that I need to do a show on, a podcast on, because Barton Nunley's wife and my wife both have had white Bigfoot encounters, and that is so weird. And my wife's had that story for a long time, and we keep saying we're going to get into it, we're going to talk about it, and then I even reached out to Dan and we were going to talk about it, and then we never did put it together because I got so many projects going. And Ken Gerhardt, there's our friend. I was going to read Ken Gerhardt. Okay, so Ken said 15% of Bigfoot sightings describe light, white-looking hair. This fits in with other mammal species that have genetic pigmentation anomalies such as albinism and leucistic. Yeah, okay. Slash this. Okay. So this guy Ken Gerhardt, Lyle, I don't know if you know him too well, but do you trust this guy's word? What he's saying here, is that correct?
Yes, I trust that Ken can use a few solid scientific terms to explain it. But yes, it's more precisely worded, and he is correct. Where most people, just sort of have a general knowledge of Bigfoot, just always perceive them as being, brownish, dark brownish in color. But, of course, as you deep dive into any of these subjects, you start to see the variation, and there are quite a few reports of, people saying they're blonde looking or grayish or just flat out white, which, it makes sense if, we have, humans have all sorts of hair colors, and certainly if they're anything close to us in any way, they could also have that variety in hair color. So, just because people say that they saw a white one certainly doesn't rule it out. It almost makes it more credible, because you think if somebody's going to make up a Bigfoot sighting, they're going to definitely say, oh, it was 8 feet tall, it was brown, the typical characteristics. So the fact that people see other colored hair, seems to, be credible.
Yeah, Justin Decker, he just said, I've read reports of white Bigfoot, both being elderly, but also younger ones being white. And, hold on, let's see. Yeah, that's definitely, it's not just an elderly, because I know that the one that my wife saw she said it was small, like a juvenile, like it was little. It was physical. It was a physical creature. And so that happened out in the high desert, which, you don't think that it would blend in well with its surroundings. I think Holly here says a white Bigfoot sounds like it would have a difficult time blending into its environment. It would not be able to easily blend in as other Bigfoot. But that would go the same for Goatman. I've gotten Goatman reports of them looking white, like the one in Maryland that my friend saw when he was a kid. And he told me in a room full of people that I'm still friends with to this day that this thing attacked their car. And it happened in Maryland. And then you go and you start researching and you realize that there's a bunch of stories of Goatman in Maryland. And they're white. It's a white Goatman,
Right, and that's kind of the Maryland Goatman was kind of the most famous, or pretty much is the most famous of the regional Goatmen. And yeah, I would say in most cases, people that report Goatman sightings They are said to be light colored.
Mm-hmm. And here's an interesting thing, and I was actually on the phone earlier with this Mr. Ken guy we were talking about here, and and what we were talking about. One of the things I told him, I said when I get reports of Bigfoot, it runs the gamut. Like it can be white to black and everything in between, every type of shade you can imagine. Okay, when I get reports of Dogman, same thing. Typically, there's like this brownish red that comes up, or there's a black, or a smoky gray, kind of a gray color, whatever. But you get different reports. I've gotten white ones, all kinds of things. But when I get these cat reports of these bipedal cat-looking things, they're always panther-looking, and they're always black. 100%. I have never, not once, gotten a report. And I'm gonna maybe have her on either next Tuesday or the Tuesday after. My hairstylist. She told me and Anthony a story about a cat person sighting, and she's gonna come on the show and she's gonna talk about it. And her name is Amy. She runs a barbershop here in Austin, and she was very adamant that it was a black cat looking thing. But it's always that. The feline seems to always be black. There's no variation at all. I never get like somebody saying, "Yeah, I saw a cat that looked like a tabby," or an orange cat, or it's always just a black panther-looking creature. Like 100%. Why do you think that is, Lyle? Do you think what is it with that? Why is that different than the Dogman or the Bigfoot?
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, I think the Black Panther has the mystique as far as cryptids go. I mean, if people see a cat walking on four legs and it's incredibly large, if it's light in color, it could very well be a normal cougar. Whereas if somebody sees that and it's black, unless it's a melanistic jaguar or leopard, then it's considered a black panther, which is said not to exist. So automatically, the black in those cases is really what makes it unusual or a cryptid. Now, if somebody sees one that's walking upright on two legs or something, obviously that's even stranger. And I guess it still carries that sort of strangeness of it being black in color. And we get reports of black dogs. Well, phantom dogs, black dogs and stuff. Well, we see all sorts of dogs, but if you're out somewhere and you see this creepy black dog, it's creepy because it's black and because it's the location. So there's just something about especially the felid reports, that it almost catches your attention if it's black. Otherwise, it could just go unnoticed.
So you think that there could be other variations of these, but they just go unnoticed?
Could be, hard to say. I mean, I think by and large, any reports I ever get of cryptid felines are always just of the mostly of the Black Panther variety, where it's this, which means, then the meaning behind that is it's a melanistic cougar, and no cases of cougars or that's the same as saying mountain lion. There's no cases of melanistic. That's mostly what I get. A few times I've gotten those kind of weirder reports where they said it got up and walked on two legs or something else, and but usually the ones I get are just that. Black Panthers, Yeah.
And then Davy Jones's locker says Goatman Bridge. Folks, I've been there. It's in Alton, and me and Lyle talked about that before. Lyle, do you want to tell people what that is? So, because people get that and the Lake Worth thing, they kind of lump it together, because it's in close proximity.
Right. Yeah, that they do, and I, of course, discussed that in the podcast episode, because the little city of Alton in North Texas, there close to Denton, is about 40 miles from Lake Worth, and there's a bridge there called Old Alton Bridge, which has a legend of a Goatman, and that gets into what I consider the typical Goatman type legend, and often these are associated with bridge locations. And in that case, the tale came from there was a black goat farmer that lived up there many years ago, that supposedly the clan came in, and they were unhappy with his success. He was a very successful guy and running a good livestock business, and they supposedly hung him off that bridge. And so once you have something, a murder or something like that happens on these bridges, oftentimes, down the road, you're going to have these kind of tales where people see strange things of all sorts, not just sort of reporting a Goatman, but other strange occurrences. So Old Alton Bridge always kind of comes up when you talk about the Lake Worth Monster, because again, the Lake Worth Monster is often thought of as being a Goatman, and then there's the bridge as well. And that theme carries over with a lot of the Goatman stuff. One of the other famous Goatman tales is the Pope Monster from Louisville, Kentucky. And in that case, there's a train trestle there that is a very high bridge that runs through the woods. And there's tales there that this Pope Monster, which is a Goatman, lures people up on the bridge. It chases people with an axe. It jumps on cars. And in some cases, I say many, but literally in some cases, people have gone out there on that bridge and fallen off and died while they've investigated this, or they were messing around. So again, where you have deaths and things like that, you tend to have these swirls of paranormal activity. And in these cases, sightings of a creature that people call Goatman. So, Texas is no different. And there's, even when I was a kid, there was one here. I lived in sort of the suburbs between Fort Worth and Dallas, and there was a place called Screaming Bridge, and there was supposed to be a Goatman out there. So it's almost a ubiquitous type thing where there's a bridge in the woods and legends circulate, sightings of Goatmen.
Yeah, it seems like they're always around bridges. Like, there's a lot of us. There's one at Wheelbarger Bridge right here outside of Austin near Manor. And it's supposedly, and I had two of my friends, that claimed that they said they saw a goat down in the gully. They didn't see a Goatman, but they said it was weird. They were driving on they were out on the school bus, and the legend is that there was a Goatman that lived under that bridge. And one day, them two and a bunch of their classmates were like on the bus, and they were coming home from school, and they all saw a large goat climbing up out of that gully. Which, what are the odds? I mean, that's really weird that they actually saw a goat. And I was like, it was on two legs. They're like, no, it was just a goat. But I was like, that's weird though. There was an actual goat that was out there underneath it and came out. So that is a strange phenomenon. And I think that sometimes people will get Dogman and Goatman mixed up. I've had a few witnesses, because there are legends near William Cannon in Austin before it became all built up of people seeing. It was like in the 70s until like the early 90s. People were seeing this, what to me it sounded like a Dogman, but they kept saying it had like small horns. And I actually talked to a few people. I got one guy got in touch with me even before I had my show, and he said he thought he had a Dogman sighting. So he described it to me, and he said, but it had horns. And it was right there on William Cannon, and I was like, really? And so then when he introduced me to a few other people who claimed that they had seen it, and one of them was his family member, and the cousin said, I didn't see horns, I did see a snout, and it was dark, and it paralleled me. And then he got me in touch with another person, and that woman and her husband claimed that they were out walking back when there was a subdivision there. And this was back in the 70s, before there was like everybody, that was the edge of town. I mean, you got William Cannon, there wasn't nothing past that in Austin. And so he said it was like 1977, and they were walking, and they saw this thing. And he said when it crossed the road, it looked like a wolf in the face, but it had hooves and horns. and her and her husband both swore it down that that's what they saw. You know, and it was just crazy. And I guess they worked at that. There was a mental health facility used to be down in South Austin. They worked there until it closed down or whatever. They were retirees, you know, whatever. And they said that they saw it back in the 70s, and you know, and it was pretty crazy because I lived right there in that area and walked through there and never had anything happen. But a buddy of mine who now owns a bar, or actually owns 3 of them here in this area, and a restaurant. But I've talked about him before on the show. He owns a place called Spinners, and his name's Arash. He's real open about it. He doesn't, you know, he saw something that looked like, he couldn't tell whether it was goat-like or wolf-like, but it was down on all 4s, and it looked bizarre, and it was in this area called Ditmar. And in that area, we had a friend who used to work as a bartender for us back when we were running a nightclub down on 6th Street. We ran the largest dance club in Central Texas, and it was a 3-level dance club. And anyway, we had a bartender. She worked for us, and she said, I got a friend that saw something really weird over there by Ditmar. So when we talked to her, she said it was dark, and she couldn't get a real good look at it, but the way that its legs were shaped, it could have been, you know, hooves, it could have been paws. She did say that it made a weird noise though when it walked, and she said that it had like bushy hair. She described it almost like the Wolfman, but she thought she saw horns, and I was like, that's weird. I mean, like the Wolfman from the Benicio del Toro one, the newer one, you know, with Anthony Hopkins. And she told all of us that story. I mean, it was probably like 5 or 6 of us there. Probably one of you guys is in the chat right now, probably Scorpion or Loki, you guys were there. But it was just weird when she told us that story, and I was like, I mean, same thing happened to like several different people. They couldn't ascertain whether it was a goat-like or if it was wolf-like or both. And I thought that was interesting with the case with the Lake Worth monster. You know, it was like, is it a Bigfoot? You know, is it a Goatman? What is it? And why did somebody report horns? And then later people were just like, no, I didn't have horns. You know, I mean, you don't think it's impossible, and I mean, I got to ask this, but you don't think it's possible there could have been 2 different things going on there?
Well, I mean, I suppose it's not impossible. I mean, the way I usually see it is if something jumped on the car all of a sudden in the dark and started grabbing and stuff, there's a frantic panic going on, and you know, the observations are not, you know, this isn't observing creatures in a lineup at, you know, under light. It's often these are scary incidents or unnerving incidents where the thing is only seen for a short time. So it's hard to put, you know, a lot of stock in the exact descriptions and then to rule anything out for sure, because, you know, all of these were fleeting. It's in darkness. They're getting attacked. They're scared. They're trying to start the car and leave. So what they may perceive as horns could have been a reflection. It could have been actually horns. Who knows? You know, you kind of have, to me, it's like if you have multiple witnesses, especially where you have 30 people that saw it at once, if those people didn't say it had horns, then you're going to toss out the oddball and average that, sort of an average description of, well, it's upright, it's got white hair, it walks like a human, you know, it's going to be, you know, it didn't have a goat head or anything. No one said that, but, you know, at best, we're just relying on these people's testimony as to what they saw, and keep open any possibilities, really. The bottom line is this, though. People say, well, those people, some people there saw something that is unexplainable. That's the bottom line, that, you know, you can, whether it was a Goatman or a Bigfoot or whatever, it certainly wasn't, you know, just a person, or, you know, people claim that, you know, I go into this in the podcast where it's like, oh yeah, that was my brother. He wore white underwear and had a rope and was, you know, literally zip lining across cars. I'm like, that's ridiculous. I mean, an 11-year-old half-naked white kid with mascara and white underwear on is just not going to be mistaken for an upright, hair-covered creature. It's ludicrous. So, that just goes back to say that whatever people were seeing out there, it was bizarre and completely unexplainable, which is why there's still a fascination with that case to this very day. And I mean, there's even a Lake Worth monster bash. Every 5 years they have a festival thing out there, and man, a lot of people show up and still discuss the case, And
in your opinion, Lyle, because you would consider yourself more of a Bigfoot researcher, right? More than anything else?
In some regards, just simply because I get more of those reports and I've written more books on that subject. But I mean, I just consider myself as researching cryptids, but there's only so much time in the day when writing books. So, but yeah, I mean, I've probably definitely investigated more Bigfoot cases and spent a lot of time on the Boggy Creek case, over the years. So that puts me more as an authority, I suppose, on that cryptid.
Yeah, and so that being said, like, do you think that a lot of these, because I've talked to some people who really believe that most of these reports are really just a type of Bigfoot, and they're just mistaking the identity. They're just getting it incorrect, and that this is a throwback hominin, and that's what they are. And do you think that that's the case with a lot of these? Like you said, the Lake Worth monster, your opinion, do you think that that's what's going on with a lot of these, or?
I suppose some of them, but no, I don't. I'm not one of those where it's, rationalize everything as a Bigfoot. That's just not the case. This one seems that way because the witnesses described it in their own words as saying it looked like a white ape. So that's their words. But when you start talking about Dogman or some of these other reports where people try to just simply rationalize that completely as, well, it's just a Bigfoot and you're confused or whatever, I don't think that's the case, because there's a lot of credible witnesses that have had pretty good looks at these things, and in my opinion would be able to discern whether they looked ape-like or dog-like, and those, you can't just simply brush them off as Bigfoot. And there's room for error on all of them. They kind of in a way cross over. When you see some big hairy thing in the woods, if it's walking on two legs, it depends on how long you saw it, how good the lighting was, et cetera, et cetera. So there's always that room that it's one or the other, but I definitely think that people report cryptids. There's different kinds, and they're not all Bigfoot.
Yeah. Yeah, because I've had people tell me, well, like, these are just different types of Bigfoot. And then I had one guy who, he gave me a story, and then he was like, I saw a Bigfoot. I mean, most people just say, look, I saw something, I don't know what it was, and they tell me, and then I can kind of put it into the category myself. But there's been a few. But this one guy in particular was real pushy, and he was like, I saw a Bigfoot right outside of San Antonio. And I was like, okay, what did it look like? Well, it had a snout. And I was like, okay, well, automatically right there it makes me think that it probably was it a small muzzle? And the guy was like, no, it had a big old snout, and I was like, did it look canine? He goes, kinda. And I was like, well, what kind of legs did it have? When he started describing dog-like legs, I'm like, dude, that's not a Bigfoot. It was a Bigfoot. It was a Sasquatch. And he's like saying that his brother had seen one before, and when he was up in Massachusetts or something like that. And I was like, so his brother described, I was like, so you both have seen a Dogman? He goes, I don't know what that is. This person was recommended to me to talk to. I was like, oh yeah, my neighbors, whatever, had a Bigfoot encounter. And so I get in touch with this person, and they were trying to convince me for half an hour that that's what they saw. I mean, they were determined that it was a Bigfoot. And I was like, dude, everything that you're saying is screaming that this thing is bipedal canine. And he goes, well, and then we finally talked, and I explained to him what that was, and he goes, well, maybe that's what it was then. It was a Dogman Bigfoot. Okay, well, you're determined to believe that it was a Bigfoot of some kind. And I said, sir, can I tell your story on my show and actually call it Dogman? He goes, yeah, it's fine. You can call it whatever, And I was like, okay. And it was like, he determined to call it Bigfoot. That was it. And then I've had other people who, the other side of the coin, where when they describe to me their Dogman encounter, it is not a Dogman encounter. I mean, one guy, he got really mad with me. The way he was described, prehensile tail and all this other weird stuff, and I was like, dude, that sounds like a giant lemur. Like, it really did. And this guy got really mad, and he cyber stalked me for months, man. He was like, you're a piece of crap, because I wouldn't tell his Dogman story because it wasn't a Dogman. And first of all, I've never heard of a 7-foot tall lemur. So, I mean, and he kept saying it's not a lemur. I was like, well, everything you said describes it as a lemur. Everything. You look it up, dude. I mean, it was like Madagascar or something, dude. I'm like, dude, give me a better description that makes it even remotely canine, because it wasn't, and then he was mad, But sometimes, you get people that are they're just confused. And some researchers will absolutely just flat out tell you, well, actually one in particular, that everything is just a Bigfoot. And we're just misidentifying it. And I'm like, okay, fine. I'm not going to argue about it. One particularly famous guy, I'm not going to say his name, but he wanted me to tell him my encounter, and then he wanted to tell me how it was a Bigfoot. And I was like, I'm not going to give you my encounter, and it wasn't a Bigfoot. I still, to this day, have never seen a Bigfoot. So I told him, I said, I've never seen a Bigfoot, and I did see this other creature that looked like a werewolf. You want to call it Dogman or whatever you want to call it, But it's not a Bigfoot. And he was like, well, I think these are just being misidentified. And I'm like, okay, well, that's your opinion, and goodbye. And we had any more contact. But, I mean, he will tell anybody who'll listen that Dogman doesn't exist. It's not real. I mean, it doesn't exist. They talk about thousands of people who've seen this, and it's like, Ken said, could Dogman be Bigfoot's pet? I don't think it, probably not. I don't think they would get along too good. But, if you wanted one of those people that gets like a Cane Corso and can't control it, and it eventually eats you, well, that would be the Dogman. But I don't know. I think that they're all, these things exist. And when we start kind of getting into what was it, or what did it, whatever, and then you start getting caught up in the minutia, of what, and you're really arguing semantics. I mean, it's I know that there are all these things exist. I know that they all exist. I really believe that, but I kind of lean toward Bigfoot. The case for Bigfoot being a physical flesh and blood creature is a lot stronger than the case for a Dogman being a flesh and blood creature. I just really have a hard time believing that Dogman would be a flesh and blood creature that would exist, that way all the time. It's just living out in the woods, and you can just go out there and stumble upon a family of them. It just doesn't make sense to me. But whereas Bigfoot does, I mean, it just does. It makes sense that it could be a throwback, from who knows, the Pleistocene era, or Miocene era. I don't know how far you want to go back. There were several branches of the human, that branched off, and some of them supposedly died out. I mean, are these different types of, like Gigantopithecus, for example? A lot of people talk about that. I mean, you got so many different types of what they could be. To me, Dogman is something that, it has to be. Could somebody kick this Abe Lincoln out, please? Just kick him out of the group, please. Kick him out of the chat. He was going under a different name, and now he's back. I don't want to deal with this guy. Whatever, just get rid of him. We're in a cult, apparently, Lyle. Thank you for him. We're a cult.
Oh, cool.
Sweet. I'm finally in a cult, man.
Yeah,
That's
finally,
awesome.
the PRT cult is doing well. Be sure and donate your following link. Thank you, Abe Lincoln, for promoting us as the cult leader. I order you to be banished into the gorge of eternal peril. So get rid of him. Thank you. But the bottom line is the Dogman. I just have a harder time wrapping my mind around that just being a physical flesh and blood thing. And I've argued with people till I'm blue in the face, and they just don't want to get it. But that's fine. They can believe what they want. So your show is going to be once a month?
Yes, currently it'll be monthly because I'm balancing that with writing another book. And so, but, as I go, hopefully I can speed up that process. But I didn't want to commit more than I could do between the...
More than you can chew.
Right, and promise too much, because then I like to deliver what I say, and so therefore I know I can do monthly. So that's a I wish it was twice a month, but it could get up to that. And part of this is just kind of throwing it out there and seeing how it goes. I mean, I'm used to the process of writing books or doing documentary films and other things that I know how that works. Moving over into the podcast arena, and I've kind of resisted. I mean, people have asked me this for years and years. You should have a podcast. So it's like I can only do so much stuff, but I think it's something that can expand what I'm doing. And
I think you did great. I liked it a lot. And I'm not going to sit up here and lie to my listeners and tell them, go check this out.
Sure.
Lyle, I want to ask this, though, before you go. Did I have anything to do with you getting... Please tell me I did. Because I kept telling you needed to do a podcast. Did I influence you at all?
Well, yeah, certainly. I mean, conversations with colleagues are almost always what helps me determine what might be a good idea. And so, there's other folks that have, talked to me about this in the past, but, wasn't committed to that, or I didn't have time. And then in looking at what you've done and the way you just straight talking and doing a podcast, I thought, well, that's you do well and you're a successful guy. So yeah, it certainly played into maybe it is time I should, dip into that and try to expand just from the written word as well. I mean, a lot of this podcasts, I remember when there was hardly none, and now, if I took all the invitations to be on them, I would be on 2 a day. It's become just a platform where a lot of people are like it, and so as evidenced by Paranormal Roundtable and other ones. So yeah, certainly you've helped in influencing me to get out of just simply writing books. And also, I mean, in the last 2 years, it's also been a lot of turmoil with the pandemic and sales and everything having to do with being an author. In some ways it's helped, in some ways it's prohibited by increasing shipping costs and other things, where the profit of heavy ass books, and people who either are avid readers or do they want snippets. So that was one reason I thought, I can offer the same, hinge my research right into, and stories or whatever, into snippets of audio as well. So yes.
Yeah, and I thought that you would make the transition, very easily, being that you already use your voice, you sing, and then you write books. I mean, it just makes sense that you would make the leap into being a podcaster. And like our colleague David Weatherly said, just because you can doesn't mean you should.
Yeah, exactly.
There's a lot of people that are doing it that really shouldn't be doing it. They kind of, there's everybody's got a skill, and not everybody should be doing this. I mean, there's some people I think are great at it, and others I'm just like, dude, it's cringe, but you're not, you did, yours is good, and I like it. And I hope you stick with it, and I hope eventually you're able to find the time to do more, because I think it's cool, the platform you got, and it is different. It is something that's unique or whatever, and So I wish you the best on that. And also, I wanted to tell everybody, like we were talking earlier about a conference, maybe in July, and tell the listeners how you feel about that. Would you be willing to come on and attend?
Oh, surely. That's a lot of, I do a lot of appearances and stuff, and especially as an author, number one, it puts you in front of people, and I love to share the subjects, so I like to present and just hang out at these conferences and meet like-minded people. So I'm all about doing that. And if you got one going that was sort of branded in the Paranormal Roundtable, I think it could be very successful. And also, just like you've kind of been talking, we can include all aspects of cryptids and strange things rather than just, there's so many Bigfoot conferences, and that's great and everything, but there's not a lot of get-togethers where you could hear a speaker talking about dogmen or lizardmen or goatmen or all these other cool things that people report. So yeah, I think it's a great idea, and certainly if I can participate in that, I surely would.
Yeah, and you being there would be, a boost to all of us too. And yeah, we had some aspirations too to make an action figure line, and that kind of got blown up. So hopefully we can keep trying with something else, because that was something me and you were both really into, and that's what we really wanted to do that, and then it just kind of went off the rails. But I have plans for another go at it with a different style. So hopefully we'll see Lyle in another incarnation. Oh, and I was going to say too, by the way, I saw your hat, the camo one.
Mm-hmm.
Excellent choice, because I was like, because you always had that same hat. You and Ken are committed to your hats, and when I saw that, I had to do a double take, and I was like, what? And I even showed my wife and my nephew. I was like, do you see this? This is, and I was like, am I seeing this? You had a camo hat. But I was digging it. I like that. That's a different style for you. We just got to get you one now with the PRT logo on there. So you can
yeah, I need to. Yeah, I mean, I usually wear the camo hat when I go out in the woods or whatever, camping and poking around the swamps. And I think I wore that once on. What did I wear that on? Ken and I were on an episode of Shipping Wars once, and so you wouldn't confuse us, I wore the camo hat and he wore the black hat. But my other hat has sort of become so iconic, I'm afraid to take it in the woods or something. It doesn't. So I'm like, dude, I need a cool hat. So I have that one. I have another black one that I've worn in the woods, but yeah, I dig the camo. So I got to have some different fashion options.
Yeah, and maybe when you guys do if we do the conference together, if we do that, you can bring the camo hat or something. But you and Ken are actually going to be on and Redfern too. Our friend Nick, y'all are all going to be on in a conference coming up in is East Texas.
Oh yes. End of this month, April 30th, we're at the Bigfoot Roadshow in Mineola, Texas, East Texas.
Yeah, that sounds interesting. When is that going to be?
That is April the 30th. Okay. So last Saturday of this month.
Well, I might just drive out there and just crash it.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Take shots all the way, have somebody drive me so I'm good and drunk when I get there. Just walk up on stage and push you out of the way. Get Lyle, okay, yeah, go. You got this Lake word. Let me tell everybody. I'll turn around and start punching the wall.
There you go. You can, I'll let you speak and I'll sit back and then I'll take shots. So.
You can video it and then ruin. There goes my career right there.
Lyle Blackburn looks so different, and he didn't have his hat on.
Just take your hat and put it on. Just start talking. Well, Lyle, I'm gonna let you run, man. I appreciate you coming on, and thanks for your time. And dude, folks, check out Lyle's band, Ghoultown. I highly recommend it. And then check out his hot sauces. He's got all kinds of things going on. irons in the fire. His books, which I give away, which I will be giving, you know what, for this one here, I'm going to give away 2 Lyle Blackburn books. We're going to put this show on the link. We're going to put the link to it on the PRT group, and go and make a comment. You know, it doesn't have to be anything in particular. Just make a comment, as long as it's not snipey and rude. And then one of our guys will choose somebody to win the prize, and you guys will win an autographed book from Lyle Blackburn. And in fact, I'll even sweeten the pot. I'll make one of you guys will win an autographed book. The other one will win one of your autographed DVDs that you and Ken did. Forgot the name of the show now, but anyway, it was
American Monster Tour.
American Monster Tour, and you two signed it, and I supposedly am the only person that has it's autographed by both of y'all. So
that is true. That is currently true.
And I'll even put it in a PRT tote bag. So whoever wins. So guys, check out the. Make sure you go to the Paranormal Roundtable group and leave a comment, and you might be picked to win. It'll be pretty cool. And so what is your? I guess you probably don't want to say anything until it comes out. But do you give us a hint about what you're writing about?
Of the book.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's a book that I should have written a long time ago and haven't had time, and one that I was inspired. I thought I need to do this book because there is a Texas Bigfoot museum that is currently in development. So my book will fit nicely in the Texas Bigfoot Museum. So that's what I'm working on, and I had mostly have all the research and the knowledge and the case files and the newspaper articles. I just had to put this thing together. So in between developing the podcast and working on the book and working on some band stuff. So yeah, as you know, it's a lot of fun times and a lot of work, but it's all fun.
Yeah, it's fun. Yeah, and that was our whole thing behind the figures was it was cool. You know, that was what you said, and that's what we talked about. And me and you and Barton were on the phone, and we were like, yeah, it was a cool idea, and we had some investors, and then next thing you know, everybody's got a figure. And I'm like, well, forget that. And it's, you know, but hey, ours are now in the Lauren Coleman's museum, so that's cool.
Right. If nothing, those things are obviously ones or twos or threes of a kind, and that's I mean, just that is awesome and cool. And you know, we are at the end of the day mostly mortals, and in doing toy lines and other things that we envision may or may not come to fruition. But hey, in this case, we've got action figures in the International Cryptozoology Museum, and our moms and dads can be very proud of that.
Yeah. Yeah, that's cool. So, all right, and everybody, Lyle Blackburn, thanks for coming on, Lyle. I'm going to let you run, man.
Absolutely. Enjoyed it.
All right, man. I'll see you.
All righty.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
So, folks, that was my friend Lyle Blackburn. Friend and colleague and partner in the action figure venture, which I wanted to say something about that too. People keep asking me and saying things, whatever. It was my idea. And then me and Lyle got together and we decided, hey, we're going to try and make it into a mass production. But Charlie decided he had other ideas, and he was just going to make figures for anybody who asked. So it's just one of those. It's one of those things, man. It just didn't work out the way that we had planned, the way we had hoped. But we're going to move in another direction, and hopefully by the end of summer, I will have the prototypes for the new idea out. And my wife and myself are working on a board game. We have some friends who actually did create a board game and got it mass produced. And so we thought, you know what, this is a good idea. And it'll be based around the PRT. I can't give you any more than that, but it'll be based around Paranormal Roundtable. And we don't know if it's going to go any further than a prototype or if there's just going to be a few of them made. But it seems like a pretty solid idea, pretty solid plan. And I just like it because it's cool. You know, that's why I do a lot of the things I do. I mean, I don't care if it makes a bunch of money or not. It's just, if it's cool, why not? Why not give it a try? But yeah, I think it would be a neat thing, you know. So we got that going on. And Lyle is one of the few people I know that's as busy as I am. It's very hard person to pin down. I got a lot of things I got to go on. So somebody said 3D print those figures. Bass was on here earlier, and I was going to say something. Bass, get in touch with me, man, because Bass had figured out a way to, and he's got a show too, but I don't know if he's still on here, but he needs to 3D print those Dogman figures. He had showed me some on Vault's channel when I was on the show, and we had talked about the 3D printing and doing the Dogman and the Bigfoot. I want to thank Big Cole for that donation and Lene Perkins for the donations. Thank you so much. Yeah, we had somebody that was trolling on there and saying that we were in a cult, you know, donate money to the cult or whatever, and they were coming in using they came out as Dogman 20 and they were trolling, and then when they got kicked out, they came back as Abe Lincoln or something, and because the Dogman 20 guy said something about I got the Abe Lincoln look going on and was making fun of me, and my feelings were hurt. I was about to stop the live stream. We got home. This guy's making fun of me. I can't take it anymore. Is that what you want me to do? We start crying? Because obviously I can't beat you up because we're not around each other. Some big bully will beat you up. Ooh, let's go fight. So he's always telling me they're going to beat me up. Sign the waiver, like I said. But this person was trolling me, and then they said something about, oh, you're giving money to the cult or whatever. No, if you donate money, you're helping the show keep going, and it makes it worth the trouble to do it. That's what the donations are for. It helps us keep going. And we put the money back into the show unless otherwise specified. So, you know, that's what we do. And I'm going to make another call here in a minute here. But I want to say something, folks, for a minute here. I want to talk about this because you know, it just keeps coming up, you know, like people think that, you know, if you write a book or if you're on a TV show or something, or if you're doing a podcast, that you're a millionaire, that you guys some kind of, you know, you're making all these mega bucks. Okay. My money that I make has come from other ventures, not from this. Every bit of my money that I've made from this show has been put right back into the show. It's a snake eating its own tail, whatever you want to call it. And so, you know, that's, you know, we got to do what we got to do to, you know, whatever. And as far as like people say, oh, you're wearing all this jewelry and stuff, whatever, gold. Let me tell you something about that. I buy gold, I buy silver, and I invest in it. And some of my gold I melt down into jewelry because why not? You need to have that. And I did a show the other day where I showed everybody about buying gold and how important it is, because I believe that's something that everyone should do is invest in that. Now, that's my opinion. I think that the economy is getting bad, and I think that we're getting into a point where inflation has gone up 8.5% since this time last year. In 1 year. That's the high. That's the most that it's ever done in 40 years. Now, you tell me, okay? 40 years since 1982. All right. You tell me you don't think you should invest in some assets, because assets will rise with the tide of how much you know, something is worth will go up with inflation. Your money itself isn't going to do that. Your money itself isn't going to rise up. Your money is going to continue to be devalued until it's practically worth nothing. That's why I have gold. And I have I've invested so much of my money in gold as a hedge against inflation and as a retirement, that I figured why not have it You have it, why not wear it? You know, it just makes sense, you know. So this is my retirement, folks. This is my whatever. You know, and people just, they don't understand. They think that you're rolling in the dough or something because, you know, whatever. I'm just trying to help people, trying to tell you. Now, I'm not up there pretending to be a Dogman therapist. We went over that at the end of the show last week about being a Dogman therapist and how ridiculous it would be to actually be one. Now, if you want to check that out, I did a skit at the end of the show last week, and I showed you how stupid that was because someone claims to be a Dogman therapist. He says he's doing it to help people. He's doing it for therapy. That's why he's got 3 different podcasts to do therapy. Great, but you're full of it. I can tell you that. I'm not up here as a therapist. I don't pretend to be, you know. But, you know, let's keep things in perspective. You know, somebody said miss board games. Yeah, board games. There's a place here called Wonko's Toys and Games here in Austin, and then Dragon's Lair. Those two. Dragon's Lair is a comic book shop / board game, whatever. And I used to love to play Dungeons and Dragons. I was a big Dungeons and Dragons nerd. Well, actually, I hung out with the nerds because, you know, people would pick on them and I'd beat them up. Not the nerds, but people that pick on them. So I became friends with them. Plus, I was in some honors classes and, you know, I have a brain. I'm not stupid. And so I became friends with these people. But I also was kind of a jock. But I was probably the only jock that played Dungeons and Dragons in the lunchroom. And when I was going to school, nobody could pick on the nerds because they were my friends. So if you did, you might get a knuckle sandwich. But anyway, I enjoy board games, and I think that it's a throwback to a bygone era that is in recent years made a comeback. There's a ton of millennials in there playing, and then the generation, what's the new generation? Z generations, whatever they are, Gen Zers or whatever. There's a bunch of them. I went in there the other day, and that's all it was younger people, and they're playing those board games, playing games. They have tables laid out, and they play RPGs, and then they play these different board games. And there was one that was a ghost. Hey, Anthony, what is that ghost game called that I got in Ellie? It's really cool. And there was one called The Thing at Outpost something or another, but it was based on what's his name? John Carpenter. I'm sitting there trying to think. Anthony. He must be asleep. But anyway, what is the name of that freaking guy that Mysterium? What is it, that other? What is the guy that made the movie The Thing? Can somebody tell me on here? John Carpenter. It's called Outpost something.
Yeah, The Thing.
Great game, folks. It is so fun. I mean, there's even a werewolf game based on that too. It's called Who is the Werewolf or something like that. It's like a card game, and we played it. It's pretty fun. It's kind of like The Thing. But The Thing is based on that creature that was found in the ice. It was the fictional story. Infection at Outpost 31. Check it out. It's a great game if you can find it. We had to dig hard to find it. We found it like on eBay or something. But the Thing, and so I got to be friends with these people from the board game place, and they. They said that you can get a board game made, and my wife has been working tirelessly on this because she wants to just have something for us to play as whatever. And I thought, well, you know what? Why don't we try to make this into something that our fans can play? And we're going to try and see how it comes out and see how it works, and we're not going to give away the ideas because people will steal your ideas and then make a game, and then you're whatever. But somebody says Strategio. Oh yeah, Strategio. I love Strategio, man. That's my jam right there. I even like the 4-player Strategio too. But anyway, she's making a board game, and it's going to be based around Paranormal Roundtable. So I think that's really a cool idea. Yeah, Justin said, we played board games in the jungles by lantern light. Justin lived in the Amazon. And I think we're probably going to have you come on next week, Justin, and talk about your work and what you've been doing and looking into these cases of canine attacks. Somebody asked me what race was your favorite in D&D. I like to be a fighter, like a human fighter, but I also like to be like an elf. Elf was cool. But I also like being like a sorcerer, like mage type person. I did that a few times. It just depends, man. Like I was a lot of different dark elf. I was the dwarf, a couple times. I don't know. It just depends on how I felt. I made a lot of different characters, man, and I had fighters and magic users and all kinds of stuff, whatever. And it was cool, it was cool. It was cool. You could use your imagination and all that. Something that people don't do nowadays, whatever. I mean, and we had a pretty good. The key is to have a good DM, and we had a pretty good DM. There was this guy Stuart that used to be our DM when I was a teenager. Stuart was always good at the, whatever, the fictional whatever. So let me get this other person on, and let's start talking to this person, because this person is very interesting too. Let's see if they're available. Let me just call. Saw them in the chat earlier.
Josh Turner.
Yeah, is this Ryan?
Yes, Ryan Edwards right here.
Ryan Edwards, folks. So let me introduce you, Ryan, to the PRT listeners. You are a listener of the show, but you're also an author.
Yes, sir, I am.
Yes, and you wrote a book about cryptids. Do you want to tell us about it?
Yes. Book, it's fairly recent. Got published in back in August of 2021. It's titled Cryptids of the World. Subtitle is a conclusive guidebook to the menagerie of enigmatic animals seen across our natural world.
And now, so you sent me some copies of the book, and I haven't gotten them yet, but I did go and get one on my own and go through it. So here's what I didn't get to finish it, but it's very interesting. It seems kind of like an encyclopedia of cryptids and monsters.
Yeah, it's like kind of what I wanted to base it on, because there's a lot of authors out there like Lyle and Coleman and Ivan Marks that talk about like the cryptozoology in general, the cryptozoologists and the cryptids. But I wanted to write a book that was primarily on the animals of cryptozoology, the cryptids themselves. Mm-hmm. So I wanted to work on this one. It's like almost like a guidebook, almost to like each page dedicated to a certain cryptid.
Yeah, and in the book you had a wide range of, you had the beast, what is it called, the Michigan Dogman, and then you had like the Bunyip, just a whole bunch of different cryptids from all over the world. You had the Mokili Mbembe. It's like I said, it's like what is it, 200? How many pages is it?
I believe in total it's 206.
Yeah. And so, and you pretty much kind of write up a like a little essay on each cryptid, each creature, right?
Yes, like each page I have like a certain criteria. Like For instance, I talk about a physical description of the creature. I talk about a history of sightings, if there's indigenous population that talk about the creature. And then I try to put an explanation of the creature. Like, is it a possibly a physical creature? If it is, what's its evolutionary history? If it's maybe paranormal, what aspects of it cause me to think it's paranormal?
And so, okay, so we had some conversations, me and you, and so here's one thing that I was going to say. You were on a group chat the other day, and you posted something, and I thought it was very interesting. Let me see if I can find it. And I actually wanted to ask you this when you came on the show. Okay, so you talk about, okay, you, as far as Bigfoot goes, you're very much like Kent. You believe that it's a hominid, right?
Yes. On me, I believe it's a hominid, not a hominin. I believe it's a non-human primate.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because it says here, the ancient hominid theory, Bigfoot researchers today have created the hypothesis that Sasquatch is actually a species of unknown human. The two main genre that researchers speak of are the groups Australopithecus and Paranthropus. Paranthropus is an ancient group of hominins that had three genera, and then you went on, you talk about Robusus, Boisei, and Ethiopicus. These species were actually offshoots of the human family tree and are not our ancestors. Paranthropus was almost completely vegetarian and primarily ate grasses. These hominids are known for their robust face and jaws. Overall, they do have similar morphology to North American Sasquatch. It says the other group of hominins that researchers believe Sasquatch is Australopithecus. And then you went on to talk about that. And then it says here, Afarensis, Sediba, and Anamensis. These hominins are our ancestors and first evolved in the Pleistocene epoch in Africa. And they were omnivores and had more gracile frames than the robust and the North American Sasquatch. You want to expound on that, what you're talking about?
Yes. I talk about, it's the most, well, it's the more common theory now. It's the hominin theory, that Sasquatch is a human species, not a ape. And with it, the two main contenders people talk about is Paranthropus, which what it is, it's not a direct ancestor. The human family tree, there's a lot of branches that didn't really go anywhere. They kind of just died out. And Paranthropus is one of the first ones. It diverged off of Australopithecines in the Pliocene. And we believe these Paranthropus probably died out due to that they were highly specialized in eating grass. About 70% of their diet was grass. And we believe maybe just through this high capability of eating grass, they may have just died out because they couldn't adapt to the environment. And Australopithecines, they were more what you call gracile. They're omnivores. They could eat both meat and be vegetarians. And these are our ancestors. Genus Homo comes from Australopithecines. Homo erectus, Homo heidelbergensis, Homo habilis are the ancestors of Australopithecus. And Paranthropus is a more kind of, almost like an offshoot. It's a more ape-like than the bipedal Australopithecines. Paranthropus was also bipedal, but had more basal morphological details, more almost gorilla-like details.
And this is what you believe?
Yes.
Man, you dumb as hell, dude. What the fuck you talking about, man? You tripping, dude. No, I'm messing with you, Ryan. Ryan already knows the show. You've been watching too many of my shows. You know how stupid I am. So, okay, so the Australopithecus, why is it called that? Is it because it's from Australia?
No, Australopithecus means southern ape. Okay.
Because it means
I believe it's Latin.
Yeah, because Australia is in the southern hemisphere.
Yes.
Yeah. All right. So, anyways, yeah, but that's good though, because a lot of people don't know that. They don't think they're like, oh, it's the land down under, but they don't know why it's called Australia.
Yeah, they don't know the etymology behind the word itself.
Mm-hmm. And so it says here, these hominins are our ancestors and first evolved in the Pliocene epoch. Do you want to explain that, when the Pliocene was?
Yeah, Pleistocene was about around 2 million years ago. It was what Cenozoic era, at the time after the dinosaurs. It's cut into certain epochs. You have the Paleocene, Eocene, Oligocene, Miocene, Pliocene, and Pleistocene, and now we're in the Oligocene. All these are certain epochs that are separated by rock characteristics and certain species. Like, for instance, in certain eras you have canines, certain areas you don't have canines, certain areas you have hominids, certain areas you don't. And with the Pliocene, it's right before the Pleistocene. It's fairly recent within the timeline of Earth, with Earth being 4 billion years old, and only being 2 million years away. It's almost like a snapshot, like a blink in the eye of the history of the Earth.
Mm-hmm. So, and here's the thing, too. People think of as a million years, like, well, that's a long time ago. And then I've had people tell me, well, how does that fit into biblical terms, okay? And it's very easy, because I think the world is a lot older than they say it is. And I don't care what anybody says. I don't think that God made the world 5,000 years ago. I think he did make the world. I think he made it a long time ago. And people argue about evolution. Now, here's one theory. Now, just hear me out, folks. And I've heard this before. What if God used evolution to create everything? I'm not saying that we came from monkeys. I'm saying that what if God allowed evolution to be like it came about because, and I am not technically an evolutionist. I believe that things are the way they are, and I believe in adaptation. But it's interesting to ponder that what if God used it to create the world the way it is, and it was that way. Also, what if we were put here, and we're not related to any of these species, that we were seeded here? That's another theory. Doesn't mean that these things didn't exist, or that they didn't happen, or that we didn't have these different epochs, because Pliocene, 2 million years in the big scheme of things is nothing for 2 million years ago. Now, are these things still alive today? Who knows? The average scientist would say it's very doubtful that it would be still here, at least in the form that it was once. It's now something else. Yes. According to the prevailing theme, people believe that chickens are the closest relatives to Tyrannosaurus Rex. That's pretty sad, considering you were the terror of the earth, and now we're eating your ancestors, in the form of like tenders and dipping them in barbecue sauce. You're thinking like that's hard to wrap your mind around, but that's what a lot of people believe. And I'm not saying that that's what I believe or that's what you should believe, but that is definitely something that's worth looking into. When you start thinking about like where we came from, I think it's very possible that these creatures all existed in a time before humans were here at all. I mean, there were no humans. And I believe that maybe our progenitors came here, and maybe they caused the asteroid that knocked out a lot of these giant reptiles that allowed these other epochs to that allowed mammals and what eventually became the megafauna, and allowed them to grow, and thus allowing predators to flourish that were giant predators, like Amphitryon and all these other these horrific animals. There was a giant pig. I forgot what it was called. It was a Entelodon. Yeah. When you look at that thing, and I've seen one like it's like how big it was supposed to be in the Denver Museum of Natural Science, and I was there a couple of summers ago, and I was like, this thing is like a monster, dude. I mean, it was like 3 of me, and it was just so horrific looking. It was like, oh my gosh, this thing existed.
Yeah,
the Hyenodon, another Hyenodon was another one.
Yeah, and like the short-faced bear and the American lion. Actually, right now I'm looking at an American short-faced bear skull, because I own one, and the skull itself is like 2 or 3 times the size of yours, and that's one animal you wouldn't want to see out in the woods. Exactly. And our ancestors had to deal with them.
Mm-hmm. Well, in the Kamchatka region and in the taiga region of Russia, people claim to still see it. They call it the god bear. And some of the Inuits up in northern Alaska will swear up and down that in Alaska there's still these god bears that exist. You know, they're talking like 15 feet tall. And what do you think of that, Ryan? I mean, you're the cryptid guy. What do you think? You think that these stories are to be believed?
I believe it can be, because within ecology, there's something called Bergman's law. Bergman's law states that a species, higher in latitude it gets, pretty much closer to the polar regions, the bigger it gets. For instance, think of Ursidinians, the bears. Polar bears, high latitudes, largest species. Grizzly bears, a little bit lower in latitude, a little bit smaller. And the American black bear is even smaller than the American grizzly, and it's lower in latitude. But some of the smallest bear species are right along the equator, the sloth bear, the spectacled bear. And even the spectacled bear is the last known what they call the Tremarctine bears. The Tremarctine bears are the short-faced bears, the shorter muzzle and larger, robust jaws. And it's a possibility these Tremarctine bears, like the American short-faced bear, Arctodus simus, have survived into the modern day. Because think of the megafauna that still exists in Alaska and the Yukon. And eyewitnesses of these bears state that their limbs appear to be longer. And the Arctodus was known for its long legs. They believe it's an adaptation for long-range walking and scavenging. These animals were most likely not great, really rapid predators. They're probably scavengers that could roam large distances and have huge home ranges. Yeah. So it's a possibility. Maybe they've adapted to what we now know as like Alaska and the Yukon, and maybe have interbred with the indigenous grizzly bears, and maybe have morphologically changed over the epoch since the Pleistocene.
Well, when you look at a Kodiak bear, which, as far as science knows right now, is the largest, like brown bear or whatever, it looks like it could be a cross between a polar bear and a grizzly. I mean, doesn't mean it is. I mean, but like we know now that dire wolves weren't wolves at all.
Yeah, it's now known as Aeonociondirus. It's not a wolf. It's a whole species of genera of canine.
Canine, yeah, but they ended up looking the same.
Yes.
And that happens a lot in nature. A lot of times things that are like 8 limbs is very popular. Look at the, like the arthrocephalopods, the cephalopods themselves. You look at arachnids, like scorpions and spiders, lobsters. Obviously they had some sort of common ancestor, but when you look at how many limbs they have, 8 seems to be kind of a number, That's why octopus is called octopus, because it has 8 limbs. Here's another thing I was going to ask. Now you're talking about the short-faced bear, also known as the cave bear. The bear that existed at that time, it looks like it would just be a super predator. But you made the point, and I was going to say, it's not a predator because it didn't have to be. And we're seeing that now in Yellowstone. The wolves are doing a lot of the work. They're taking down these elk, and then the bears come in and take it from them. Now, these wolves, a lot of them had been out of Yellowstone for over 100 years. So when they were reintroduced, these wolves are kind of like, what do we do? Whereas the wolves before were thought to be more aggressive, and that they were actually better at defending their kills because they had grown side by side with these grizzlies for 1,000 years.
Yes.
And now these wolves that are there now, they're kind of like, and I think they brought them in. I don't know, were they originally Raincoast wolves or something? They brought them in.
Yes, they weren't indigenous to the area. It's a totally different environment for them.
Yeah, so then they come there, they're kind of like, what do we do? This bear's taking our food, Whereas, but then where their original habitat is in British Columbia, those Raincoast wolves will actually kill and eat bears. But when you take the animal out of its environment and put it, this is where you belong because you used to be here, and then they're trying to readapt to being in this northern, place that they're not really used to, then they're struggling. And so when they take down a kill, the grizzlies have figured out that they don't even have to do anything. They just go and they run the wolves off, and then they take it and they eat it. And then occasionally the wolves will put up a fight, but they won't be able to really defend their kill. And that's, that until the wolves can figure it out, that's just kind of how it's going. And then you have a weird phenomena where these bears aren't even hibernating anymore. And everybody's like, global warming, blah, blah, blah. Well, not necessarily. It's because they don't need to. They can eat all year long. They don't need to fatten up and then go into hibernation for the winter. They can live out in the winter by taking kills from other animals. Yes. Cougars and wolves can do the kills, and then they can just come and take it from them because they're the type of the food chain. And so they don't even need to do all this feeding and then going into hibernation, which is it's just a weird phenomenon. And so having talked to you about this, why we're talking about this, because you were very hip on not only just cryptozoology but zoology in general. One of the things I was going to ask you too, you talk about in your books all these different cryptids and all these different, and you kind of jump around. Like you're kind of like you're in the Congo with Mokele Mbembe, and then the Bunyip, which is in Australia. Like in your studies for this book, what was the most fascinating subject? I mean, you talked about everything, Dogman, Bigfoot, everything. It's all in there. But what was the most fascinating to you? Which one sparks your interest the most?
I'd say with me, there's primarily two groups of cryptids. One is what they call the Proto-pygmies, and the second is, of course, the Dogman, the bipedal canines. Mm-hmm. And Proto-pygmy, it's a term not a lot of people use nowadays, but it's primarily used by Ivan Marks and Lorne Coleman. It is kind of a name for the group of small human-like primates seen across the equator. Think of like Yoang Pendek, the Agugri, the Tutu of Cambodia. All these animals are very similar in morphology. They're about maybe 5 feet tall at the max, maybe 6, very Bigfoot-like, but with red hair, pointed heels, and a lot more human-like characteristics. And also stories of them like carrying tools and even manipulating fire, which really sparked my interest because I love paleoanthropology, which is just the study of ancient humans. And we know our ancestors, like Homo erectus and Homo habilis, have moved once were indigenous to the areas. And like even in 2007, Homo floresiensis was found on Flores.
Yeah, and Homo floresiensis is the most recent, isn't it?
One of the most recent discoveries. Yes. And it lived alongside us modern humans.
Tiny little thing, dude. Little hobbit-looking thing.
Yeah, they were literally, when the discovery was made, they called him the real-life hobbit. And it brings the question, okay, the indigenous people of Flores talk about a creature called the Ebugogo, a small human-like primate that would steal their children and eat them and things like that, which brings to mind, okay, did the local indigenous Naga people know of the Ebugogo from the Homo floresiensis? Is it a cultural memory? Is the animal still alive today? Which really brings my interest into the field, because it's like, how do the people know what was around hundreds of thousands of years ago if they're supposedly extinct by the time they got to the island? How do they know of these animals that have been extinct for a long time unless they saw them themselves?
Because they weren't extinct. They had to have been, yeah. Kamla Harry says Orang Pendek. That's in your book too.
Yes.
Yeah, that's in Southeast Asia.
Yes, Sumatra. And then there's another one I speak of called the Orang Bati. It sounds like a Orang Pendek, but it's totally different creature. It's actually more like a flying humanoid that's seen in the Sumatran area. Yeah.
And did you want to talk about any of these creatures that fascinated you, like when you did your research on these things?
Yeah. For instance, one creature that, of course, you talk about quite a bit on your channel is the American hyena, like hyena sightings here in the United States. Because, of course, back during the Pleistocene, we had an indigenous hyena, the Chasmotites. also known as like the running hyena, because it was a long distance sprinter. And modern day, we have hyena sightings, especially in like Oklahoma, North Texas, parts of the Southwest. And it brings the question, has this creature somehow survived into the modern day? And if you look at the ecology in North America, it could possibly still be existing, because the hyena niche, the large scavenger that can crush bones, isn't already taken. So why couldn't something like a hyena survive onto the modern day ecology in North America?
Yeah. And because there were lions and hyenas in North America at one time.
Yes, the American, like for instance, the American lion, Panthera leo atrox, it was double the size of the African lion, and it was a huge creature, and it was most likely lived in prides, but very small prides. Because imagine if you had an animal double the size of like a tiger, if you had a large pride, that would kill everything in a certain area. So it had to be in a smaller pride in order to persist longer.
What era was that? Was that the Pleistocene?
Yes, Pleistocene. They lived alongside like dire wolves, Smilodon, short-faced bear, and possibly even Sasquatch, if Sasquatch was around back then.
And dire wolves, when you think of dire wolves, like people don't realize they had huge packs, gigantic packs, but they had to be able to compete with the North American hyena and the American lion. These animals were monsters, and so the dire wolves, they would seem like from nowadays they would seem like some sort of terrifying creature, if they were here today. But considering like that they were much larger and bigger than regular wolves, but not so much back then, because they had some massive predators that they had to live alongside, like you said, like the American lion and then the short-faced bear. These were nightmare creatures.
Yes,
so these dire wolves were not on the top of the food chain, but they had to have bigger cliques, bigger packs to compete with these other animals or whatever. So yeah, it's just, when you think about that era, it's a nightmare.
Yes.
But then, and as scary as it was on land, the oceans were just terrifying. I mean, some of the oceans of the different eras, just terrifying. When you talk about megalodon, that's just one. I mean, that's just one. Like they're talking about this megalodon. There were 4 different sharks in particular that were just like that I can think of, that were just nightmare type creatures. Megalodon was just the biggest, but I mean, there were others that were just probably faster and even more ferocious.
Yes, and not even the sharks, but like the ancient reptiles,
the mosasaurs, plesiosaur type creatures. That lived in the oceans. And in your book, you talk about the bunyip. That's a creature from the lake, a lake creature, right, from Australia.
Yes, it has a lot of different descriptions. Some people describe it as looks like a giant dog. Some say it looks like a seal. Some describe it as having feathers. But most likely, people think it might be a leopard seal. Leopard seals are predatory seals that have found themselves in the rivers and lakes and billabongs of Australia. So it might be one or two of these creatures might have ended up in those areas. The indigenous Aborigines spoke of these animals, and maybe the description has changed over the years. Like how they have the experiment of like you have 10 people in a line. You whisper one line in one person's ear,
it changes,
and you see if it's the same at the last person, and it's like totally different.
Yeah, and leopard seals are actually have a big old mouths with big old rows of teeth, and they are predatory, and they are dangerous animals.
Yes.
Very large seals. In fact, I think they are the largest seal, aren't they?
Yeah, they're the largest seal. I believe the second largest pinniped after, I believe, walruses.
Yeah, the walrus. Yeah, but those are pinnipeds though. But a walrus is not a seal. But yeah, they are the largest pinniped, I believe, after the walrus. I believe the walrus. I don't think there's anything else. Yeah, it's really interesting to think about. You are a wealth of knowledge when it comes to zoology and cryptozoology, my friend.
Well, thank you.
Can somebody get rid of this thing at the bottom, please, guys? So, anyways, great. Hold on one second here.
Of course.
There's always got to be somebody trolling.
Well, it is part of cryptozoology. If we got to hunt trolls, they come to us sooner or later.
Well, and that's the thing I was going to get into with you just in a second here. When you talk about cryptozoology, do you guys do you think of Dogman as a cryptid? Because I know that me and Ken Gerhardt had gotten into this on Facebook with some people, and he doesn't believe it's really a cryptid, and I don't really either. It's just kind of like it's being lumped in with cryptids because I think it's more of a supernatural type entity. But what is your thought on that, Ryan? Having written a book about cryptids and being into zoology the way you are what are your thoughts on the Dogman phenomena?
Yeah, for me, it's kind of a fun because I'm very much of like a physical explanation. Like, if something has an evolutionary history, did it evolve from something? Mm-hmm. But with bipedal canines, the morphology of it's just so hard to believe that it evolved somehow. Like, of course, we had a lot of canine species, but I can't really imagine how becoming bipedal would be helpful after a while. Because with evolution, you have something called a fitness landscape. From when the trait is first evolved to when it's finished, it has to be somehow helpful for the animal. Like, for instance, if humans wanted to grow wings, so at some point when our arms become wings, at some point it's not going to be helpful, so it would never evolve. So with bipedalism, it's not just a trait that it happens every other day. So I don't think it's a physical animal for sure, because I can't imagine how it would evolve somehow on the in North America. Mm-hmm. So I think it's most likely some type of paranormal creature. I don't know if it's metaphysical, demonic, extraterrestrial. That type of research is just not my wheelhouse. I like hearing about the stories, but just not what I research into. I try to go into more like physical explanations. And of course, there's people that believe there's some type of physical Dogman bipedal canine, which I believe there has to be some type of physical aspect to it, because at least in my opinion, of course I'm not an expert in metaphysics or anything like that, I don't think a metaphysical animal would have to eat other animals or kill and drink water and leave footprints, which all have occurred with these bipedal canines. But a lot of the other sightings have the things like orbs and teleportation and portals, which suggest a more paranormal aspect to these creatures.
Yeah, it's funny because I had somebody attack me in the group one time, in this silly group that I'm not in anymore. And this woman goes, "Stop talking about these things like they're werewolves or something other than what they are." And I'm like, "What are they?" And she's like, "They are a species that has evolved." And I'm like, "Oh my gosh." And I'm like, "Okay." And so she was one of those people. And I said, "Yeah, and I know exactly where you learned your stuff from." And so one of the things that I told this person, which sparked a big old controversy, whatever, and I said, where is the proof in these creatures having existed in a physical corporeal body? There's not one shred, not 1 ounce of it. And so I told her, I said, but people have seen them. I've seen one when I was 15. But there is no proof at all, of this, of the existence of this thing. So when you start looking into when you take a hard look at it, and you start to go, okay, this creature is seen by thousands of people, but there's no physical anything, that you can point to and say, hey, this thing exists. I told her, I said, when you can bring me any kind of anything that can be traced back physiologically to one of these creatures, then I'll believe that there's an undiscovered species known as Dogman out there. But I'm not one of those people, like a very prominent Bigfoot researcher. Well, he's more than a researcher, but he told me that what I saw had to have been a Bigfoot. I'm like, no, it wasn't a Bigfoot. What I saw looked like a freaking werewolf.
Yeah.
And you get, so you get these people that are on different sides, but to sit there and say that it makes us look silly or that it makes us look goofy to entertain the idea that these things are supernatural creatures, to me sounds stupid because the average person on the outside looking in at our community is going to go, what is wrong with these people? They believe that there is a wolf man running around out in the woods, that it just exists. I mean, that sounds so incredible. And then when you try to tell people are trying to wrap their minds around, how did this thing actually come to be? How did it evolve, or whatever you want to call it? How did it learn? How did it grow to be this thing? You know what I mean? That's the thing. My friend, he lives up in Dallas. Fort Worth. Good friend of mine, named Keith. Been friends with him for years. Shout out to you, Keith's a good guy. But he asked a very important question when we were hanging out one night when we were up there in Fort Worth to go visit some family. And I stayed the night at his house, and we just talked shop. And he said, dude, you know what? I can understand Bigfoot being a physical flesh and blood, but how does Dogman? I guess I can't wrap my mind around it. He's not that I don't believe in it, but how could it be a flesh and blood creature? It doesn't make any sense. There's no precedence for it. I mean, there's nothing. You know what I mean? Then I got into a conversation the other day with Kumbo Baker. I don't know if you know who that is, Ryan. But Kumbo was saying that he believes that there was a race of dog-headed people called the Cenocephali. Now, there's a lot of I guess anecdotal evidence for that they existed, like saying, like people like different explorers and people making mention of it. There was a like Spanish explorer, Marco Polo, Spanish explorer in Patagonia. I forgot who it was. But they mentioned these different types of dog-headed type creatures, and in India. And so there is some evidence there that says, hey, these things could have existed. But I still go back to that there could have been, like with the Anunnaki. They came here, they created those things. They did that. It was like a genetic thing that they created. And then that became, when they left, that they were left here, and then they just kind of faded into the wilderness and became wild or whatever. My former co-host, God rest his soul, Armando Salazar, he really believed that the Cenocephali was what we were dealing with, and that they had a civilization, and that when it fell, they all just kind of became feral. They gave into their nature of their animal side. He also believed, though, that there was some sort of spiritual aspect to them, too. Now, if they were created by the Anunnaki, and they would go hand in hand with their abilities to move in and out of stargates and portals, that would make sense that the Dogman had that in them, too, to do that. But once the Anunnaki were gone, the Dogmen were just kind of left here. And this is going to sound funny, but it's like if you went on vacation to pick a place, you go to vacation and you take, 3 of your dogs with you. Then you leave that vacation spot and you don't have any place to take your dogs. You just leave the dogs there. Now, the average pet owner is pretty crappy if they did that, but the Anunnaki were not necessarily nice guys. So they just said, you know what, we're just going to leave all of our stuff here. We're done and whatever. And then, of course, some people believe that God locked them up, There's all these different theories that we could postulate on what they could be, and what one thing that they're not is something that evolved to be that way. I don't care what anybody says. You're not going to convince me that evolution made man and canine stand up on his hind legs and run around. That is the stupidest, silliest thing I've ever. And anybody who says that, dude, I'm going to tell you you're stupid and you're silly. And there's certain people, individuals, that even make groups based on that because they're basically goofy. I can't even tell you how ridiculous that sounds.
Yeah, like, cause like there's always a thought experiment I try to do with these cryptids. I'm like, okay, let's just say Dogman exists and it's a physical creature. That means right now there's a Dogman somewhere running in the woods. It has a family, it has kids. Can you think about that? Like, how realistic is that to you right now? Like, can you just imagine somewhere in the woods, let's just say 50, 100 miles away from you, there could be a Dogman just running around? Like, at least in my mind, it just doesn't sound that realistic that they exist 24/7 always. Like, they're born and they die and they live in the woods constantly. It just doesn't sound that realistic.
Yeah, especially when you look at the size of these creatures too. I mean, you're talking 7.5 foot tall is about the average. I mean, 500-600 pound creature. You know, and I know people will say, "Well, look at Bigfoot, but Bigfoot would be a lot more intelligent though too."
Yeah,
If it would
like there's. Go ahead.
No, go ahead, Ryan. You're good. You're the guest.
Like, there's one thing I bring up with like Dogman and Bigfoot. Let's just say hypothetically, Dogman's a physical creature and Bigfoot's a physical creature. They have there's plenty of times that they're seen together, like in the same like property or same area.
Oh yeah.
Ecologically, that wouldn't work out. Mm-hmm. Like, there's something called niches. Like, there's an apex predator, there's an apex omnivore, otis. Two apex predators cannot live in the same area.
No.
So Dogman and Bigfoot, ecologically speaking, they couldn't be in the same area if they're both a physical creature. So there's a thing called niche differentiation, which is when happens like if two animals have the same niche, one lives in a certain area, the other lives in the other area. So they don't share the same resources. But with Dogman and Bigfoot sightings, you don't have this. They're seen in the same areas at the same time of year, so it doesn't show like migratory or anything like that. So ecologically speaking, that can exist. Like, you can't have two apex predators in the same area at the same time. So it suggests most likely one's a physical creature that lives off the land, the other one isn't. It's something else.
Mm-hmm. Somebody here just said, I got Paul Kozak said, by the way, last Dogman encounters, there was a researcher who said Dogmen are using tools to prepare deer bodies and pull organs, etc. And he says, I don't know why they would need tools, but maybe they are smart enough to use them. Smart enough to use them, maybe. But if this creature, why would it need tools? It has the tools right here. You know, it doesn't.
Yeah.
Why would it need to tear? I mean, it doesn't make any sense. If I had claws and teeth, that's dumb. I mean, I'm just going to use my abilities to tear apart these animals. Why am I going to go and get a tool?
Yeah.
And by the way, that show is fiction, so let's just get that out of the way. That just, I mean,
yeah.
I mean, I'm not saying that every episode's fiction, but a lot of the stuff people say on there, dude, is like, I just can't. It's just like a soap opera or something, dude. I mean, there's so many things that you can look at and go. I mean, there's only so many stories you can hear, and you're just like, dude, okay. You know, I'm in a 4-wheeler and I'm shooting its peck off and all this. Shut up. Whatever. You know? But yeah, anyways, I wasn't making fun of you, Powell Kozak. I'm not making fun of you. I'm just talking about the show.
Yeah.
Because this person, Powell, is just saying what was on the show. But that doesn't make any sense, you know what I mean? Like, yeah, it wouldn't. Somebody here says Joshua Longy says wouldn't want cooked meat or nothing. I don't know. 7 foot is small. I saw an 11.5 foot Dogman. Red Sonya, you saw an 11.5 foot Dogman. Send me your story. Let's talk. We can talk about your. I'll talk about your story on here. Tell me where it was at. What happened? Somebody here says, "What's going on with Linda Godfrey? Is she unwell?" Yes, she actually is, folks. Just keep her in your prayers. That's all we can do. Holly M says, that's a very good point regarding two apex predators not being able to live in the same vicinity. That's true. Yeah. I mean, it's kind of like two alpha males trying to live together in the same household. Yeah. Somebody's going to be the dominant person. Somebody's going to take charge and be like, look, you know, I'm going to be the dominant alpha. That's just the way it's going to be. And that's just, it's the right of might. That's what happens.
And that's like the thing is with, especially with cryptozoology, if you look at it through like an ecological and scientific perspective, you can see Well, the illogical aspects of it come out. Like how I see it, cryptozoology and paranormal and all this, it shouldn't just be one perspective. It shouldn't just be paranormal or just scientific. It should be a marriage of both of them. A marriage of the illogical and logical, of superstition and science. Because only through a combination of those will we see the truth. If you just have one perspective, even that in and of itself isn't science. Science should be about looking at other people's ideas and perspectives. And with the paranormal aspect, there should be other aspects you look at it other than just like it's a physical creature or it's a metaphysical creature. And with cryptozoology, you have a lot of perspectives and a lot of viewpoints in this. And see if the truth is somewhere in the middle. Is it somewhere to the far right, to the far left? It's somewhere in there. You just have to get out.
That's right. Red Sonia says, where do I message you because I have many encounters? You can hit me up on Facebook. Also, folks, I'm on Instagram as Josh Turner 940. You can hit me up on there, or you can go to Facebook and message me. You can private message me. I have two profiles. One of them is just me standing there going like a goofy. That's just the secondary account that I made because I kept getting banned for nothing because I was arguing with another boxer about some crap, and we got to talking some trash, and I just basically told him that I watched Scorpion beat him up, and I got in trouble for that. Because he's talking about fighting me, and I was like, dude, you can't even beat Scorpion. You can't beat me. So that was what that was about. So I was catching bans all the time. So I made a secondary account, and there's like a wallpaper with bananas behind me. Because, I thought it was fitting, because everything's bananas. But anyway, that's not really an account I use much. The other one of me is I think it's me with sunglasses. That's the Facebook account. You can hit me up on there. Or you can email me. My email is a little backed up, though, and I've had to clear a bunch of stuff out. And so my email is joshturner@prtpodcast.com, joshturner@prtpodcast.com. But, yeah, Messenger is probably the best way, to just send me a message on Messenger on Facebook. And if you want to be friends on Facebook, folks, send me a message saying that you are a listener of the show so I can approve you until you become a problem. And most people aren't. I have had a couple stalkers and even threats from people, which is just completely ridiculous, dude. Somebody would tell me the things that they've told me. I mean, you become my friend and then go, oh, you know what? Keep doing the show or we'll kill you. It's like, okay.
That's not friendly.
that's not fun. I'm not having fun at all. Yeah, but people are nuts, man. And then I get people calling me, too, which is something I really don't like unless, you're invited to do that, So, Ryan, I have another question for you. You have another book coming out. And by the way, folks, you have no idea. Ryan, how old are you, Ryan?
20.
20 years old, and you've already written a book, and I can't even write one. I can't even get the time to open a book now at this point, but I'm hoping to get one written. I may have to ask you to show me your how you did it, because it's like I start and then I just can't get it flowing. You know what I mean? But now I'm finally starting to make a little headway. But 20 years old, folks. This guy is 20 years old, and now you actually live in San Antonio, right?
Yes.
Yeah, and you've actually went to and met with Ken Gerhard.
Yes.
Ken said he knew you. You did verify that. And so it's crazy. You wrote a book at the age of 20, and you're writing a second book.
Yes. Let me just give you just a couple pointers with it, I guess. Right now, I'm kind of doing the preliminary research for it, but what I want to do, it's a Bigfoot book. But not your average Bigfoot book. It doesn't really talk about encounters or Paz and Gimlin film or Bluff Creek. It talks about the science behind it. I run off the theory that Bigfoot's a biological being. So it's okay, why does it have the behavioral and morphological details it has? With my running theory is I believe it's something called an evolutionary anachronism. Bigfoot wasn't built for today's world. It was built for prehistoric times, like the Pleistocene, where it had to compete with American lions and smilodons. That's why it might be so large and cryptic. So I'm running off the theory of that, and what could it be? Is it human? Is it ape? If it's an ape, Is it Gigantopithecus? Is it something like Oreopithecus or Dryopithecus? And I want to talk about also the prehistory of the stories of it, of like the Native American stories of Bigfoot. Like, what are their stories about it? What are their origin stories of the creature? Was it here before them? Was it here after them? And I want to talk about things like that in my book.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting. And I'm looking forward to it because your first book has been pretty good. Folks, that is Ryan Edwards. And Ryan, we left a lot of meat on the bone, and I'm going to check out, but I'm glad you came on and we talked. And we were supposed to do it last week, and then I just went too long with the other stuff, and I appreciate you being patient and eventually coming on. Name of your book again?
Cryptids of the World.
Cryptids of the World, folks. Good book. Check it out. It is like it reads like an encyclopedia of the cryptid. You know, you are very well read, very researched young man, and I'm looking forward to seeing what you got on your next book coming out, dude. I look at you and guys like Kenny Irish are like on the cusp. He's like writing his second book. He wrote American Cryptids, and he's writing International Cryptids, and now you're writing this second book. I think that's a very good way to do it, because you're not just going to be telling encounters. You're going to be postulating on these theories that you got, and talking about how you know what you think, and you know you could be onto something.
Yes,
I think that you have a bright future if you keep going. As young as you are, by the time you're my age, you'll be like Nick Redfern. You've written 70 books.
Honestly, it's an honor to be even compared to people such as like Nick Redfern and like King Gerhard, because these are the people I looked up to when I was like a kid doing research, hoping like one day I'll try to be like them. And it's like I'm just getting into the research field. Like, I've been armchair researching for years, but now I'm really getting into the field, and it's an honor to meet people like Lyle, Blackburn, and King Gerhard and Nick Redfern, because these are the people that really made this field.
Well, when I do my conference, if you'd like, you can come and speak.
Of course, I'm always open.
I'm supposed to be doing. We're gonna start trying to do it again. Me and Ken were in the process of putting one together during the when the pandemic hit, and then that was it. We kind of, well, what do we do now? You know, so we just put it on the back burner. But now that everything's coming out, you know, it'd be good to maybe, you know, have you come out there and talk. And I'm a man of my word. I'll give you 5 minutes. Then I come up. Okay, good job. Move along. I'm just kidding, dude. No, Ryan, you have a lot to say, so we're going to let you talk. You have a lot of good information, a lot of pertinent information, and your knowledge on the different eras. Me and you need to talk. Just shoot the breeze. Come to Austin. I'll buy you a beer at Spinner's, and we can talk about the prehistoric times. That's something that my buddy Scott Martis, I even named my cat after him, Martis. He passed away, you know, and he was a good friend of mine. And I love to talk to him and talk about the prehistoric era. And he was always, you know, a joy to talk to. He liked talking to me because I knew a lot about it, and you know, and he was like an expert, you know, something that I'm not, but he was, and we could talk about that stuff all day long. But yeah, you definitely are fun to talk to, and so I appreciate you coming on. And you said that Ken and Lyle and all those guys, you looked up to those guys when you were younger, you said?
Yeah.
You didn't look up to me? Why not me?
Well, at that point, I didn't get into your channel until a couple of years ago, but I've gotten into it really now. Like, I remember, I think the first episode I watched was Texas Wolfman.
Oh, really?
I think that was the first episode I watched.
Really? Yeah. That's your excuse? That's your final answer?
Yes, please come on. I know I live in San Antonio. I know that's a far drive. You can't reach me from here, right? Hopefully.
I can be there in an hour. I'm just messing with you, Ryan. No. I'll see you, dude. Hey, when next time I'm in San Antonio, which might be pretty soon, because I got a buddy who's a prankster, and everybody, I was gonna plug him on the show. His name is Eric Kavinsky. If anybody wants to check him out, he had a really large channel on YouTube, but it got taken down. But he has a thing he does on Facebook. He does these pranks, and I think we're supposed to be doing. He invited me to do one with him in San Antonio, so I might be coming up there to do one.
And actually, I'm going to be coming to Austin pretty soon, because I'm going to the Texas Bigfoot Roadshow at some vendors. So I'm going to be driving to Austin in a couple of weeks.
Is that the one in Mineola?
Yes.
Okay, you're going to be there at that one?
Yes, I'm gonna be at vendor table. I'm selling my book up there.
Yeah, I was thinking about, you know what? If I'm gonna see what my schedule is this the end of this month, and I don't know. I might see if me and Nelly might want to head up there and go check it out, dude. If I don't have a bunch of stuff going on, I might just show up and just see what's up, you know. But yeah, Ryan, it was good talking to you, and like I said, good luck on your next book, and thank you for coming on and talking. Folks, everybody, Ryan Edwards, check out his book. And Cryptids of the World.
Available. All books are sold.
Yeah. And you can get on Amazon, right?
Yes. Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Half Price Books. Pretty much most bookshops have it.
Okay. Yeah, cool. And we'll drop a link, guys. If you guys are interested, let me know if you're interested in Ryan Edwards' book, and he can autograph it. And he's going to be coming out with another one, like I said. And we'll do a giveaway. I think you're sending me a few books, aren't you, Ryan?
Yes, I believe they're in the mail right now.
Okay, cool. All right, man. Well, it's good talking to you.
Good talking to you too, Josh.
Right. I'll see you.
See you.
Bye.
Night, everyone. Night.
So, folks, that was Ryan Edwards, up-and-coming author. 20 years old, ladies and gentlemen. That young man is 20 years old. He's already written... I was gonna buy him, but he can't even drink it. He's not even legally of age to drink. I'm sorry, I rescind that. I cannot buy you a beer. Sorry, that would be illegal. So, yeah, it's hard to believe, like, you know, what some of these people. 20 years old, I wasn't thinking about writing books. I mean, I was still collecting stories, and I thought maybe someday I'd write a book, and I was still thinking I was going to be a fighter the rest of my life. But Melissa, thank you for that donation. We appreciate it. Everybody that donated, it's greatly appreciated. We need it to keep the show going. Shaman Star, you have some pretty interesting things to talk about here. Ryan says, I'm about to be 21. Okay. Well, when you turn 21, come up here and I'll take you to Spinners or to Woodrow's or whatever. We'll have a beer. I don't drink much, but it's fun to talk shop with people that are intelligent. Shaman Star says, ghosts can't happen without microbial process. And then you're talking about industrial microorganisms are one of the most not talked about superpowers of the paranormal movement. What does that mean? Message me. I want to hear what you have to say. I mean, you know, the average person probably thinks it sounds ludicrous, but I'm open to hear what you have to say. Because everything goes from the smallest to the biggest, you know, like a pyramid, you know what I mean? Like we are literally all the microorganisms. We are millions of cells that have just decided to work together to be one organism. Think of like a Portuguese man of war. It's like a bunch of different creatures all mixed together. And believe it or not, there's even something that preys on the Portuguese man of war. If you can believe that. There's something that actually eats that. No matter what you are, if you're a carbon-based life form, you're edible. Something will eat you. There is something that will look at you as food. I mean, even great whites get killed on the reg by orcas. Killer whales are literally the apex predator on this entire earth. They're not on land, thank goodness, because they could pretty much kill and eat anything in the ocean that swims in the ocean. They can pretty much kill and eat it. So then you look at, like, you know, there's nothing that can stop it. You know, the only thing that can stop it is you being on land, because they will literally kill great whites. And there were two killer whales, and animals are fascinating too. The zoology in general is just a fascinating subject. There were two killer whales off the coast of South Africa that were responsible for killing like a dozen great whites. Well, they know of at least like I think 7 or 8 that died, and there might have been more, but they caused them to go away. That was a stronghold for the great whites for decades. So researchers would go there and they would study them, and then these two, what they believe were brother killer whales, moved in, and they didn't like the neighbors, so they basically killed them. You know, and the great whites were just like, what are we going to do? Let's get out of here. If you turn a great white a shark upside down, it looks like a demon, laughing, like a devil. I'm not kidding. It looks really weird. Killer whale just says his neighbors making a lot of noise. Hurting my head. What do you think we say we do something about it? Next thing you know, they're turning out their livers. Dick Critter says gangsta. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Casey Kidd says great whites avoid killer whales at all costs. They do. They've even done studies. Marine biologists have done studies where a killer whale will attack a great white, and all the other great whites in the area will actually dive down deep to where they know that the orcas won't go that deep, you know, and because they can't stay down there too long. They come up for air, so the great whites are like, let's get out of here. You know. Nina Sinclair says, bring him to Canada for a drink. Manitoba drinking age is 18. He does sound older than his age. I was shocked when he told me how old he was. So, before I jump off here, guys, let me know what you guys think. And don't forget to go check out Lyle's podcast. It's really good. I liked it. I enjoyed it. I sat there listening to it even though I was tired. Melissa says dolphins kill sharks as well. They do, but more often than not, they're on the losing end of that. They get killed by sharks quite a bit. They are actually one of the favorite prey of the mako. Yeah, I was always rooting for them to kill sharks. I don't like sharks. Ryan Tremblay, not Ryan Edwards, but Ryan Tremblay, one of my colleagues, wasn't here tonight, but he is a big shark guy, and we're supposed to be doing a show together eventually. We just haven't had time to get together about ocean cryptids or water cryptids, not necessarily ocean, but. Hey Josh, my dad Richard was wondering if you got his letter from your P.O. box. Yes, I got 2 letters, and I have not had a chance to even open or read them, but I had 2, I think, from last week. But last week I was busy doing taxes, which is a daunting task for me. So yeah, and everybody who I still owe things to, if you did join the Patreon. If you join the Patreon, they're patreon.com, PRT podcast, and you pledge $20, you will automatically get PRT swag and an autographed book from one of multiple authors. No telling who you might get. And I have agreed to give that to anybody who pledges $20. All I ask is that you wear the shirt and put the stickers somewhere useful. And you can just be a member for 1 month. Doesn't matter. If you pledge the $20, you'll get that on the Patreon. But we would like for you to join the Patreon and just donate whatever you can. Like I said, it's up to you, whatever you want to do. But we do have that deal in place. And I'm going to read these 2 people who, and I apologize, Amy Denise I don't know exactly how you say your last name. I still got to get your stuff. Dorothy Metcalf and Julie Roland Shearer. I have not even had a chance to go and mail this stuff off, but tomorrow I will. And I'm going to drop this link, and so I can get by the end of the week, I'll get whoever wins this stuff. 2 people. All right. We'll do this. I'll give away the DVD, the Ken Gerhard and Lyle Blackburn autographed copy of the Monster Mystery Tour, Mysterious Monsters, whatever. We'll give that away. So 2 lucky people. And I'll even throw in a PRT tote bag. If we still, I think we have at least a couple left. So get them while you can. Holly says a pod of dolphins saved my mom when she was a little girl from a shark attack. Is that true? Well, I mean, you know. Yeah, the thing is, Melissa is saying nature is the best, a beast, no winning against it. These animals have millions of years from the sharks are an alpha predator, but they're not on the par. What the heck? They're not on the par with the great whites. They're not on par with the killer whales. Killer whales they're pretty much the alpha predator on Earth. They have no predator. That's the only animal on Earth that nothing can eat. Any predator on land, I don't care if it's a bear or a dogman or a Bigfoot, jumps in the water, a killer whale could eat it. And a killer whale will never come on land unless they're beaching themselves in Argentina to grab like a walrus or whatever the heck it is. They're not going to be running around on land, but if anything gets into the water, they can kill it if they want to. The males get over 30 feet. And they're intelligent. They're super intelligent. They're actually not whales at all. They're porpoises. That's what they are. And they're amazing animals. So, yep. And Lene Perkins says, I have to go, y'all. Have a great night, and God bless all of you. Yes. Giant squid eats everything. Well, I don't think a giant squid's going to kill a killer whale. I don't see that happening. I can see it getting into a tussle with one. The Humboldt squid is considered one of the meanest animals in the ocean. They're found in the Sea of Cortez in particular, and they're known as the Red Devil. The fishermen there off the coast of Mexico just despise them. They're so violent. Yeah, I agree. Melissa says, yeah, misinformed generations. They're not snuggly. No, they're not. They're killers. That's why they're called killer whales. All right, folks, so we're going to get out of here. Don't forget, this Friday, we're going to be doing Not Deer. Let's do it real quick. Everybody who's on there, tell me what you want to do. What do you want? Because I got to record this in about an hour. We're going to start recording. So is it Not Deer or is it Paranormal Potluck, folks? I'll go with the next 10 to 12 comments. Not Deer or Paranormal Potluck? Come on, guys. Tell me. No, Tony, I did not see Cabin in the Woods yet. That is on my to-do list, but I have a million other shows that I'm trying to watch. One Not Deer, one Potluck. Another Not Deer, another Potluck. Not Deer. Not Deer and Potluck. Come on. So there's another Not Deer. Let's see. Potluck. Potluck is 6. Potluck. Let's see. Not Deer. Potluck. Let's see. And then Not Deer. Potluck. The not deer. Oh, it's almost neck and neck here. Now we got 2 more not deer in potluck. I tell you what, whichever one of y'all, the not deer, the potluck, whoever decides the make the donation with the not deer potluck and put down what you want, and then I'll do it. How about that? You can make it $1. We'll break the tie like that. That would make sense. Nina Sinclair says they say killer whales have amazing long memory. Apparently they can remember things from decades. I got to have one of these that stands out somehow. Coin flip. There you go. Coin flip. We got a coin, Anthony? I don't even have a freaking coin. I don't even have coins. I have a bunch of them at the house, but none here. Do we have something I can coin flip? I got an idea. Here's how we could do it. Oh no! Don't take that out. That's my silver coin there. Isn't that glass on there?
No, it's just plastic.
Is it hard to get back in it?
No, you just open it up.
Okay, we're gonna do a coin toss here. Oh, we got it. Holly M. Don't worry about it.
All right. Holly
M. said potluck and she donated $10. So thank you, Holly. That breaks the tie. Let me see that real quick. I'll make sure that I'm correct on that. Yep. There it is. We're doing a potluck, guys. Sorry, not dear people. That's it. It's been decided. We were about to do a coin flip of one of my silver Bigfoot coins, and then that happened. All right, thank you for that donation, Holly. And like I said, you could have just donated 50 cents or $1, whatever. Somebody. But you did that. You went above and beyond. Thank you so much. So we're doing a potluck. So this Friday you'll get the paranormal potluck, and then you'll have 2 weeks of Hernandez Ranch, and then after that you'll get the not deer episode, and then you'll have 2 weeks of the Hawaiian mythologies, and then on into who knows what at that point, because we have so many different people we have to interview and do whatever. Do me a favor, folks. Say a prayer if it's in the cards that these particular people at this particular network will pay for the plane ticket for my wife to go so that I can go and do this. But if not, then it's not to be, then I won't do it. All right, guys, I'm going to check out. I'll see ya. Thanks for tuning in to another exciting episode of Paranormal Roundtable live stream on Tuesdays.